Even the divine king must kneel and sing submission. After one night, everyone entered the third layer of the celestial illusion. As soon as they entered, countless fierce beasts charged at them. Considering the radiation from the engineer deployment could harm their own side, Subai summoned all the seals. Led by the double the tribute Tanya, they charged toward the flood of beasts. In an instant, the creature with the body of a sheep and the tail of a fish, Mo Gala, surged like a blue storm, accompanied by the sounds of wailing and howling. On the other side, the special forces unleashed their firepower, forming a dense network of gunfire that covered the front lines of the charging enemies. The two sides were separated by a distance of 500 meters, with brass bullet casings scattered across the ground like golden grains of wheat. The third wave of enemies was far greater than the sum of the first two layers. Yet, facing the special forces' assault, they were as helpless as soft-shelled shrimp, doomed to die under the onslaught. Every shot found its mark. In an instant, the monster's green blood turned the yellow earth into a verdant meadow. Newton and the old monk wanted to rush into support, but they were stunned by the powerful infantry firepower of Subai. Although this guy's heavy artillery was formidable, its drawback was a slow attack rate and slightly lower agility. However, his light infantry cleverly compensated for this. Nevertheless, Subai was already frowning. He felt that the damage dealt by the special forces was still insufficient. It was not fast enough. The enemies on this layer were clearly much stronger, with enhanced defense and agility. His special forces had the ability to exploit weaknesses, capable of delivering critical hits in the thousands. As long as the enemies were not undead or structures, they could inflict explosive damage. Therefore, Subai summoned the snipers. Once the snipers were called forth, they quickly turned the tide of battle from a defensive stance to an aggressive push, suppressing the opponents. As the body count rose, the attack speed of the special forces increased as well. In just an hour, the monstrous sea had been eradicated. Then came the moment for Tanya to shine. As elite-level monsters fell to her dual guns after their weaknesses were exposed. With the mist ahead dissipating, the creator of the Brahma illusion descended with holy light, appearing before Subai and his team. Brahma, the god king of the national religion of the region, possessed supreme power. The old monk, a devout Buddhist, trembled. If it weren't for the war against Buddhism brought by Brahma, the people would still revere the Buddha. Thus, upon meeting, they were sworn enemies. Brahma, you old thief. Die. Subai was surprised by the old man's agitation. He had been cautious like a turtle before, and now he seemed to willingly walk into death upon seeing the God King. How could the Buddhists, who had cultivated here for generations, lack composure? Brahma flicked his finger, and the old monk was instantly cast into the iron lock hell, bound by chains, his muscles straining as he heard the sounds of bones cracking and tendons snapping. As the situation grew dire, with more air escaping than coming in, Subai had no choice but to use the skull of Gul'dan, transforming himself into a demon guardian and becoming his own ally. The iron chains broke, and the demon guardian gasped for breath. This powerful strength I bestowed upon you, do you like it? The old monk laughed heartily, brandishing the blade of flames and charging forward. With 100,000 health points, the demon guardian was immensely powerful. In the human realm, none could rival it. The blade of flames unleashed fierce winds, mercilessly striking at the opponent. Newton was astonished. This man actually possessed the power of corpse refinement. Could it be that his secondary profession was that of a steel alchemist? The previously composed opponent now had to do his utmost to defend and block. The iron chains of the underworld could not bind the man transformed into a demon guardian. As it is said, if I do not enter hell, who will? He became a demon on the spot. The dark transformation amplified his power 100-fold. Ahaha, die. Just die? With each slash, blood and flesh flew. It was reminiscent of the Shaolin's burning wooden sword technique, causing the old monk, now a demon guardian, to become red-eyed with rage. How dare you play tricks in front of me? I am the God King. The opponent retreated, resting against his massive weapon. A shot was fired. A white, merciless bullet shot towards the demon guardian. The old monk's true strength was not to be underestimated. He drew his knife and immediately blocked with the blade of flames at his chest. Crack! The blade of flames shattered, and the bullet flew off. Foolish humans. Under my weapon, only women live and men die. After saying this, he fired several more shots, creating craters in the ground. Subai's SEAL team lost over a dozen members. Subai frowned. This guy's firepower was indeed formidable. That weapon of his was no less powerful than his own. The strong enemy only ignited Subai's fighting spirit further. So he smiled. Old man, I don't know if you're challenging me with sniping or artillery. Hee, how about it? Do you want to compete with my weapon? Since the opponent had issued a challenge, Subai, being a man, had to accept. Since you asked, I won't hold back. In the next moment, Subai unleashed his full force, with thousands of troops bursting forth from his chest. Light prism tanks, apocalypse tanks, rhino tanks, grizzly tanks, phantom tanks. Every artillery piece was released. In an instant, his armored forces numbered over 500. He stood atop an apocalypse tank, drew his Browning, and aimed at the opponent. Firing the first shot. Humph. With such a small force, you dare challenge me, the God King? Humans truly are overestimating themselves. With the roar of a mighty tiger descending the mountain and the dragon's chant entering the sea, the firepower was unleashed. Instantly, the divine being was engulfed in a sea of flames. The energy shield barely held up under the blue light. How could this be? How could human firepower be so fierce? A V3 rocket shot towards him, shattering the energy shield in an instant, causing the divine being to explode in fragments. He couldn't believe it. You can't kill me. I am the God King of this nation. If you kill me, the dragon vein fortune of this nation will be severed. Subai snorted coldly. Silly child, if you hadn't killed the old monk just now, you might have left some face for this nation. It wouldn't have been destroyed so thoroughly. After all, the old monk still resides here. Now that the old monk has become his demonic guardian, there is nothing left in this country worth pitying. Kill. Boom. Amidst the continuous waves of massive explosions, the divine being emptied his health bar and transformed into beams of golden light, scattering away. In the next moment, the entire dungeon began to normalize, as if it were about to disappear. Subai, puzzled, asked the old monk beside him, "What is happening?" "Young man, you are the first to kill a God King. Those who challenged the divine being before, as long as they were recognized by him, could clear the dungeon. There has never been anyone like you who directly killed a god. It seems that the dungeon is collapsing now, the spiritual power is vanishing, and this place is becoming ordinary and normalized." Chapter 137, System Expansion Update, Yuri's Revenge. Setting aside the restoration of the dungeon for now, Subai focused on the rewards he had obtained. After defeating the divine being, he received 2 items. One was the coveted item, Golden Tiger Talisman, which could summon troops up to 5 times his own strength. The other was Fanatical Belief, Relic, unique item, Belief of Billions, attribute, Manipulate Hearts. Using this item allows you to control enemy troop movements, limited to 1 unit, cooldown time 24 hours. This item was somewhat similar to Yuri's mind control. However, at this moment, Subai searched through all the technologies of his army, but found no unit resembling Yuri. If his system were the original version, there should be a Yuri. If it were Yuri's Revenge, then he also lacked many of the newly added units. This left him puzzled. So he could only temporarily store the item in his spatial ring. But the next moment, several items in the spatial ring erupted with a strange glow. Crown of the Abyss Lord, Brutal Power, Meditation Power, and this, Power of Belief. The 4 powers continuously rolled within Subai's spatial ring, leaving him utterly astonished. The ability to emit such brilliance proves that these items are interrelated and can be synthesized. Without hesitation, Subai immediately took out the melting magic box. After paying 100,000 gold coins, he began the melting process. Instantly, a star-like glow erupted in the sky, resembling the dazzling Milky Way. With a crack, the melting magic box exploded, unleashing a powerful force. In its place, another item appeared before Subai. Endless Sands, single-use item, unique item, attribute, possesses infinite possibilities. When used on any target, it can transform them into an alternate version from a parallel world. Shocked, a surge of impulse rushed to Subai's chest. Could it be that using it on himself would cause his soul to return to his original self in another world? Subai dared not try. He was invincible here. If he could return, he would just be a poor loser. Yet, if it turned out to be impractical, it seemed he would be at a loss, especially after using so many rare items for synthesis. Each of those 4 items could fetch a sky-high price. Thus, Subai gritted his teeth and released the extra Soviet base vehicle he had. It was a gamble, hoping the single vehicle could transform into something more useful. After all, it was just an extra Soviet base vehicle. He could accept it even if it turned into a motorcycle. Use. The endless sands in his hand scattered like wind and sand, enveloping the Soviet base vehicle entirely. A flash of light then blinded everyone. As the light dimmed, a new unit reappeared before Subai. Yuri Mobile Base Vehicle. Unique item. Double-click to deploy. Yes, master. Where shall we make base? Shaking with excitement, Subai was once again stunned. He had actually obtained a base vehicle from the Yuri faction. Just as he was still processing this, a voice from the system sounded beside his ear. System detected loading of expansion pack. Upgrading. In the next second, all the power from the generator inside Subai was reduced to 0. The radar shut down, and all soldiers ceased activity. It wasn't until 2 minutes later that the system issued the next command. Upgrade complete. The host can now use all units from the Yuri faction, and the Allied and Soviet units have been upgraded, unlocking previously unavailable units from the expansion pack. Could it be the previously non-existent heavy soldier, twin-blade helicopter, remote-controlled tank, and hero Boris could all be produced now? The intense tension made Subai's mouth dry. Beside him, Newton shook Subai's shoulder. Are you all right, young friend? Subai gasped for breath a few times, having used the golden tiger tally, then nodded toward Newton. The old monk, transformed into a demon guard, remarked. Now that the nation's fortune has dissipated, it won't be long before the entire country fragments into many small states, reverting to its pre-colonial appearance. This is for the best, sparing us from constant provocations against the Dragon Nation. With that, Subai undid his trousers and urinated fiercely toward the Imperial Mausoleum Guardian. Not only will the fortune be severed, but I'll also desecrate your sacred grounds. May you remain suppressed for 10,000 years. The old monk sighed and vanished into the jungle. Newton said, Brother, thank you for rescuing me. I wish to return to my homeland. Can you assist me? Of course. Let's first head to a major city, find a telephone, and contact your embassy for help in sending you back. It seems our business here is concluded. The two emerged from the jungle and arrived at the capital of the nation. The city was already in chaos, with looting and brawls everywhere, even the military joining the fray. Subai shook his head, realizing the old monk's words held true. The nation's fortune had indeed run out. Upon finding a working telephone, they learned that the embassy staff had already departed hastily. Thus, Subai brought Newton back to the Dragon Nation and sought out Director Chi Tongwei of the Public Security Department to arrange Newton's return. Director Chi was overjoyed, as Subai had quelled the border conflicts in the highlands in less than 2 weeks and even brought his precious daughter back safely. Subai, Annie Gao has prepared a meal at home. Come back with me to eat. How can one settle down when threats remain unvanquished? Subai waved his sleeve, leaving without a trace. 5th Combat Team, Su Xiaoya, at 5:30 tomorrow, join the assault on the 7th Fleet of the certain nation's ironclad linked vessels. Yes, currently, many coastal areas in the southern Dragon Nation have been reclaimed. The elite students from the Moidu Jingwei Galding Shefu, skilled in amphibious operations, have joined the coastal defense efforts. Su Xiaoya was selected as one, a dragon warrior capable of flight, ideal for naval battles. After the artillery skirmishes on the outskirts of Wudu concluded, Subai had an early bowl of tofu pudding and headed outside the city. With a grand gesture, hundreds of mechanized units advanced, leaving countless tire tracks on the roads. Along the way, any neutral wild creatures encountered were cleared out. By afternoon, they easily neutralized a landing point of the certain nation's troops, liberating Harbor City. By then, the city was devoid of civilians. The next adversaries lay at sea. Subai noted the absence of an ocean in the Stony Sea, making it impossible to locally construct docks and rapidly build a navy. He weighed his options carefully and decided to drive out the coalition-based vehicle. At a coastal port, he quickly had the soldiers set up defenses around the surrounding buildings. The base was established, and a dry dock was constructed. Chapter 138. The aircraft carriers set sail. The Subai fleet has assembled. At the dock, the coalition dry dock rapidly emerged from the water. Subai selected 10 destroyers and 3 Aegis cruisers, then clicked on an aircraft carrier. Almost forgetting the underwater forces, he hurriedly added 30 dolphins. Money flowed like water. The earnings from the outer realm had been spent lavishly, and with the acquisition of the Golden Tiger Talisman, the maximum troop capacity doubled. The cost of building troops was particularly high. A couple of days ago in the capital, Subai had put the dragon-slaying sword up for auction at the Giaspi auction house, hoping to exchange it for a large sum of money to buy gold. However, due to the war, the sword ended up unsold. In the end, he handed over the demon's sword to the provincial committee and received a reward of 5 million. This amount was barely enough to buy gold, which was scarce in the real world, unlike the abundant crystal energy mines in the outer realm. Aircraft carrier responding. With a voice prompt from the aircraft carrier, Subai's coalition navy was fully formed. Boarding the high-tech behemoth, he immediately felt a sense of embarking on a journey towards the stars and the sea. Recall the coalition base vehicle. All Navy personnel, set sail. The dolphins continuously explored unknown waters, dispersing the fog of war. In Subai's mind, the ocean map kept expanding. Eventually, he spotted numerous large ships engaged in combat in the distance. Su Xiaoya, attack the enemy's aircraft carrier. Understood, Teacher Chun. In the sky, students from the elite academy in the capital, capable of commanding flying troops, relentlessly directed their forces to attack the aircraft carriers of the opposing nation. Centurion, prepare the spearmen. Fire. On the aircraft carrier of the opposing nation, dozens of long-range attack units were executing defensive maneuvers. Javelins, arrows, fireballs, and ice arrows were launched in a volley. In an instant, many flying units of the academy students were shot down, causing explosions in the sky. This is not good, Teacher Liu. The enemy has linked their large ships with iron chains, forming a massive platform capable of deploying nearly 10,000 anti-air defenses. We cannot get close. Teacher Liu, responsible for aerial command, was extremely anxious. If they could not sink these chained ships, the coastal line of their nation would be vulnerable to enemy landings at any time. Defending against the enemy on the ground would be even more difficult. All troops, change formation. Su Xiaoya, you led the team in a low dive, attacking the underside of the enemy aircraft carrier, sinking the massive ship. Got it. Su Xiaoya spun in the sky, guiding her dragon warrior fighters to fly close to the sea surface. Meanwhile, Teacher Lu continued to maneuver in the sky with other students. Suddenly, a barrage of arrows rained down, and Teacher Lu was struck by several arrows, falling from his position. With the loss of their commander, the students immediately fell into chaos. They were targeted by the forces on the enemy aircraft carrier, suffering greatly. Although Su Xiaoya's attack had some success, creating a breach in the enemy's aircraft carrier, unfortunately, there were no allied forces in the sky to draw fire. Her dragon warrior fighters were instantly concentrated upon, and within 3 minutes, half of the 300 warriors were killed. Despite her reluctance, Su Xiaoya had no choice but to lead the remaining students to retreat. The forces of Long Kingdom are retreating. All units, pursue them. From the aircraft carrier, 500 flying troops immediately took off to chase after Su Xiaoya and her group. In the process, several more students were shot down and fell into the sea. This battle ended in a complete defeat for the naval and air forces of Long Kingdom. In the command room, the admiral of the opposing navy sneered coldly. He was surprised that Long Kingdom had the audacity to confront them at sea. It was truly foolish. Did they not understand why the opposing nation could become the global leader? It was all due to their innate naval power. Dominating the seas, invincible. All forces, advance 5 nautical miles. Air units prepare for aerial bombardment of Long Kingdom's coastal cities. Yes, Su Xiaoya, sitting on the real aircraft carrier. Su Bai looked towards the distance through the tower. To his shock, he saw familiar dragon warrior fighters, along with Su Xiaoya. Clearly, they were being pursued. It seemed the operations of Long Kingdom were not going smoothly. The flying troops took off to provide some support in the sky. Over 50 flying troops buzzed and flew out in groups. Initially startled by the flying troops, Su Xiaoya was overjoyed upon realizing it was Su Bai coming to rescue them. She immediately led the students to fly onto the deck of Su Bai's aircraft carrier. My goodness, is this made of pure iron? How is that possible? How can iron float on water? It must be ironclad wood, right? No, look at these structures. They are definitely made of steel, at least an inch thick. An iron ship. Such a large iron ship. Could it be a secret weapon of our Long Kingdom? It's possible, after all. The opposing nation cannot dominate the seas forever. We must step into the deep blue as well. At that moment, Su Bai walked out from the tower. Su Xiaoya immediately ran over and hugged Su Bai. The group of students who escaped with Su Xiaoya were somewhat puzzled. A ship this large should have thousands of troops deployed for defense. The commander and the various cooks must number at least 100. Why is it that only this one commander is visible? And he is a young man fully equipped with top-tier gear? He even has a marshal's insignia on his shoulder. Could he be that individual? They exchanged glances and dismissed the thought, as that person was likely still in another realm. One of the second-year class leaders approached and asked, "Excuse me, who is the overall commander? What kind of ship is this?" "I am," replied Su Bai. "This ship is called an aircraft carrier." Instantly, all the students exchanged looks and then burst into bitter laughter. An aircraft carrier? Only a certain country possesses aircraft carriers. Although your iron ship looks sturdy, you shouldn't provoke that country's aircraft carriers. We truly can't compete with them. Their aircraft carriers are filled with troops and have long-range units everywhere, while yours is completely empty. Such a spacious area. Is it for the elderly to practice square dancing? Also, you look like a student too. Just tell us who the overall commander is. If you want to deceive our school's beauty, Su Xiaoya, you'll have to pass our scrutiny first. At that moment, in the distance, the enemy forces pursuing them engaged with Su Bai's rocket troops. The sky was filled with fiery trails left by bullets, resembling meteor fireworks. The students who had just narrowly escaped immediately tensed up again. It's over. The enemy's pursuers have arrived so quickly. There are no soldiers on this iron ship for protection. We can't escape. However, in less than 3 minutes of battle in the sky, the hundreds of pursuing airborne troops were all eliminated by Su Bai's forces. Following that, the airborne troops landed back on the deck of the aircraft carrier. Everyone was left speechless, staring at everything in shock, unable to regain their senses for a long time. Chapter 139. The Strongest Air Defense. Aegis Cruiser. 1 missile launch. Annihilating tens of thousands of foes. Those flying troops are so strong. I thought they were just mosquitoes. They actually wiped out the enemy. Yeah. They kept buzzing in my ears, driving me nearly insane, but I didn't expect they would annihilate the enemy. Phew, what a narrow escape. As everyone regained their composure, they began to discuss among themselves. The second-year class leader let out a sigh of relief and then said to Su Bai, "Since we've driven off the enemy's pursuit, let us hurry back. This ship, along with the 10 or so behind you, looks quite substantial. But the enemy has over 100 ships. And there are 10 aircraft carriers. We have no chance." Su Bai smiled. "Run? The ones who should be running are the enemy. Forward, everyone. Annihilate the enemy's iron-linked fleet." There is only one type of aircraft carrier, and that is the Allies' aircraft carriers. Everyone responded, General. The commander responsible for the pursuit has lost signal. It seems he has been killed by the enemy. MacArthur was taken aback. At the same time, General, we have observed around 18 enemy ships approaching us. They still haven't given up. You used air forces to launch a surprise attack on us. And now it's our turn to retaliate with air strikes. All air forces, heed the command. Advance. Eliminate those warships. On the massive ship with iron chains, various flying units jumped off the deck, flapping their wings, and took to the skies. They charged towards Su Bai's fleet, blocking out the sun. In the distance, they were densely packed. So many. There must be at least 1,000 enemies. 1,000 enemies? If it were just a few, that would be manageable. But it looks like there are not just 10,000, but at least 8,000. It's over. This time, we really can't escape. The students who had just relaxed now saw even more enemies rushing over, and their hearts sank again. So many enemies. It seems that they are really pulling out all the stops. Su Bai looked at the dense mass in the distance and smiled. Since leaving the instance, he hadn't seen so many enemy troops. Indeed, they are putting in a significant effort. Compared to the army, the commanders of awakened aerial units are already quite rare. The enemy managed to deploy so many flying units, showing their immense global influence. Who knows how many foreign talents they have recruited to serve them. If this group of flying units attacks the coastal cities, it would definitely lead to catastrophic consequences. Unfortunately for them, they have encountered Su Bai, Aegis-class cruiser. Shoot them down. The cruiser approached the sea, and all 36 missile silos on the deck opened up, totaling 72 missiles. With a sweep of the radar, the targets in the sky were quickly locked on. Fire. With a single command, 72 missiles shot out from the cruiser's launchers. Each missile was several meters high, cutting through the air with a whistling sound. Wow. Amazing. So many steel spears. I didn't expect these ships to have such hidden capabilities. I really underestimated them. But what does that matter? Even if they all hit, they still can't overwhelm us. Yes, and they aren't blind. They can dodge. Hundreds of missile trails created waves of white smoke in the sky, forming a series of cloud-like stripes. All units, disperse and defend. The incoming enemy immediately took evasive action. However, the missiles launched from the Aegis cruiser are equipped with tracking systems. No matter how these units tried to evade, they were still hit by the missiles. After all, their speed compared to the missiles was like a tortoise racing a hare. In an instant, hundreds of massive fireballs erupted in the sky, and large groups of enemies turned to ashes under the missile bombardment. Compared to the real Aegis, the Aegis in this scenario has unlimited ammunition. The power is immense, making it one of the strongest units in air defense. Dealing with these small threats is a piece of cake. With so many enemies, the ship is constantly gaining experience. It quickly leveled up to level 3 and acquired new skills. Centurion Dense Formation Low Altitude Defense Cannon. Note: enemies approaching within 1 kilometer of the ship will suffer rapid-fire attacks from a 20mm caliber M61A1 Gatling gun. In the sky above, although the air defense missiles are firing continuously, some enemies still manage to dive down and attack the ship. At this moment, the rapid-fire cannon opens fire. The sound of gunfire fills the air as 500 rounds per minute create a massive barrage. It's dense and highly lethal. Coupled with the enhancement from killing intent, the firing rate reaches 12,000 rounds per minute. The enemies are like moths to a flame, being turned into Swiss cheese by the wide-caliber bullets, leaving nothing but scraps to fall into the sea, becoming a feast for the fish. This aerial battle lasted less than 20 minutes before the enemies retreated. General, we lost 45 troops, 35 majors, 60 lieutenant colonels, 135 sergeants, over 800 junior personnel, a total loss of 1,000 personnel. Upon hearing this, MacArthur's hands trembled. This was the entire air force of the 7th and 8th fleets. They were almost completely annihilated by just a dozen enemy ships, not counting the loss of troops. The number of commanders alone rose to over 1,000 lives. What kind of air defense firepower do they have? So strong. MacArthur kicked over the chair in front of him. I don't care how strong their air defense is. We cannot lose this battle. We have no reason to lose. Naval forces, heed my command. Sink those ships. With the sound of horns blaring, the deep-sea forces hidden beneath the massive ships began to stir. Swordfish, killer whales, great white sharks, and giant alligator turtles all surfaced, charging towards the enemy vessels. We won. We won. The enemy's air force has been completely wiped out. Now the enemy has no means of attack, not to mention we can annihilate them. They certainly cannot destroy us. On the deck, the crew was overwhelmed with joy, hugging each other and sharing the hard-earned victory. Just then, someone shouted, "Look! There's a giant creature underwater." Everyone rushed to the edge of the deck to look down. Beneath the surface, countless massive underwater predators were stirring up monstrous waves, beginning to attack the bottom of the aircraft carrier. This is bad. This must be the underwater forces from the other side. They're ramming the ships. I want to create a big hole in the ship and let us sink to the bottom of the sea. Some classmates became nervous and immediately summoned their limited flying troops, hoping to attack the sea creatures. Unfortunately, as soon as these troops skimmed over the surface, the sea creatures quickly scattered. Some flying troops attempting to attack the surface were even bitten by giant fish leaping out of the water, drowning in the sea. Chapter 140. When there's no tiger in the mountain, the monkey is king. Subai's dolphins became the overlords of the sea. This isn't working. We can't hit them. Damn it. This is the advantage of marine troops. In the water, they resist long-range attacks. And even melee troops trying to approach may be dragged into the water and brutally killed. Everyone felt like the sky was about to collapse. If the aircraft carrier was bitten and sunk, would our troops be able to fly back safely? Subai was also curious when suddenly the surface of the sea began to roll. There were big fish everywhere, a bountiful sight. As for the fish biting through the aircraft carrier's steel plates to sink it, Subai was initially worried, until he asked one of the students. He finally felt at ease. Do you know? The attack power of these fish is at least 30 points. And they come in swarms. Ants can kill an elephant. Subai. So it turns out it's only 30 points of attack. Considering the maximum attack could be 100 points, with various enhancements. The defense of my aircraft carrier is 220 points. Brother, it seems they can't break through the armor, right? In that case, Subai's dolphin army no longer needed to hide. He waved his hand, and all the dolphins hiding at the bottom of the sea were deployed. With orders received, the dolphins began to leap out of the water to attack the group of big fish. The dolphins in this scenario were all militarily trained and equipped with ultrasonic attack weapons capable of destroying enemy naval forces. The WP-100 sonic disintegration cannon mounted on the dolphins penetrated the ocean currents in straight lines. Countless large fish were struck by the sonic wave cannon. Their brains hammered as if by a giant mallet. Instantly, they experienced concussions, their consciousness blank, unable to move or breathe. Gradually, the fish began to float belly up to the surface. As for the enemy commanders directing the marine creatures, it was already difficult enough to manage this group. They were also burdened with heavy diving equipment. After being hit by the sonic waves, they suffered severe concussions as well, losing their autonomy and being dragged into the depths of the sea by their heavy gear, disappearing without a trace. Gradually, the number of large fish on the surface increased. Around the aircraft carrier, schools of fish floated everywhere. The smallest fish were as long as an adult's arm and leg, while the larger ones were 3 or 4 stories high. The sea was dotted with patches of fish, all shimmering with a silvery sheen. Upon seeing this, Subai couldn't help but exclaim, "What a bountiful harvest. It's a great catch." He then turned to the mobilization officer beside him and said, "Go notify the Special Forces team to find some large barrels and basins to catch the fish." The entire team, stationed within the aircraft carrier, jumped into the sea to begin the fishing operation. At the same time, Subai took out a giant fishing net from his storage ring and tossed it to the Special Forces team for them to use. This net was purchased after the last competition in the King's Canyon, as Subai recalled the unexpected capture of a river king during that event. He thought that if given another chance, he might catch even more rare treasures, which is why he had bought the large net for emergencies. He never expected it would come in handy today. Several members of the Special Forces held the 4 corners of the net and began to gather the schools of fish. A steel lock was connected to the Apocalypse tank on the deck, revving its engine to full power. Even the heavy engine of the tank belched black smoke as dozens of large fish were thrust out of the water. All the students were stunned. They were supposed to be engaged in battle, yet here they were, turning into fishing experts? Watching the half-dead marine creatures, some students couldn't help but shed tears. Indeed, the large fish summoned by these marine commanders were robust and plump. Just imagine the delicious dishes they could make: sour fish soup, grilled fish, sashimi, or fish stew. After all, most of the students present were from the south and naturally loved eating fish. "Classmate, I don't know what kind of troops you used to defeat them, but can I take a couple of these fish back with me?" Subai smiled. "No problem. Take as many as you like." In an instant, all the students began to gather fish, forgetting that they were technically still in a war zone and could face danger at any moment. After all, many coastal cities were under threat of war, and food rations had been limited. Bringing back a few large fish for their parents would at least help stave off hunger. Su Xiaoya opened her mouth in disbelief. "What is going on here? I remember you mainly focused on the army. You previously told me about coal trucks and newspaper shells. So how do you have so many Navy forces now?" "Hee, anything is possible. Want to know more?" With that, Subai playfully tapped Su Xiaoya's nose with a familiar gesture. This action unknowingly angered the other students who were busy collecting fish. "You jerk. Su Xiaoya is our goddess." They usually looked up to her, so how could she be teased by this scoundrel? Although he was quite strong, he hadn't truly faced off against the enemy's ships yet. What was he trying to show off for? The class monitor from the 2nd grade stood up, somewhat displeased, and said, "This classmate, although you look somewhat familiar, this is a time for action. Please set aside personal feelings and take this seriously." Subai ignored the outspoken student. At that moment, the Dolphin Squad had detected a special situation. "So that's how it is? I didn't expect these guys to have a trick up their sleeve. Now that we know, continue the attack. Who are you talking to? Don't ignore me." The earlier conversation between Subai and the Dolphin Squad made the class monitor feel overlooked, and his expression twisted slightly. The other students gathered around. "Hey, this classmate seems a bit arrogant, doesn't he? Yeah, so rude to ignore others. He's our top student in the second grade, and also the class monitor. At least show some respect." Su Xiaoya was about to step forward to explain, but that student retorted, "Su Xiaoya, we're in the middle of a battle. You two are flirting. Do you know this affects everyone's morale?" On the other side, the dolphins underwater had found their combat target, launching wave after wave of sonic weapon attacks. A giant clam, the size of a person, suddenly had its health bar wiped out. The remaining commander, hidden in the war fog it created, immediately became visible. After a series of attacks, the enemy's marine forces were completely annihilated. "Su Xiaoya, our school has so many excellent boys. Why are you looking for someone you don't even know?" The comments kept escalating, with some girls going even further. They even initiated a public trial. There was nothing to be done. Su Xiaoya's charm was too great, making them feel jealous. Meanwhile, the massive clam was pulled out by the apocalypse tank. Inside the clam, a basketball-sized black pearl emitted a glossy black light, drawing everyone's attention. "Xiaoya, do you like it? This pearl is for you." However, Subai ignored the group, took Su Xiaoya's hand, and walked over to the pearl. Shock! Everyone was stunned. This guy not only fought but also showed affection, and he was casually giving away such an expensive item. This pearl was worth at least several billion. To just offer it up like that was unbelievable. Chapter 141. The Destroyer Dominates. The Sakura Nation's navy draws hate. Then let us take you down first. This guy really has good luck. Using such valuable items to woo women. Even a well-known beauty like Yangmi or Reba could be easily pursued with this. The boys hung their heads. Comparing themselves to him was disheartening. Meanwhile, the girls felt provoked. Why weren't they the ones being pursued? They were no worse than Su Xiaoya. How infuriating. They couldn't help but lament their unfortunate fate and the fleeting nature of beauty. Some couples even got into a heated argument. "Look at your poor self. Coming to my house to propose, and you can only offer less than 800,000? Look at him. He just throws around billions like it's nothing. Worthless. I'm really not sure how to like you. You useless person." For such insults, the boy could only silently endure. As for the conflict between men and women, Subai never took it to heart. He knew that as long as he kept his cool, no matter how big the issue, it wouldn't concern him. On the other side, otherwise, let's retreat, Your Excellency. Our amphibious frogman unit has been completely wiped out, with not a single commander surviving. Especially the overall commander, who was of Japanese descent, was not only killed by his own illusions, but was also reported to have been disemboweled by the enemy, with the precious black pearls taken from inside. MacArthur's eyelids twitched violently. He couldn't believe how strong the enemy's underwater forces were, but he was known as the Sea King. He had fought 300 naval battles in his life without a single defeat. Yet now, he was in such a dire situation. He was furious. He was really furious. "All troops, listen up. All ranged units, assemble on the deck. Next, we will confront the enemy head-on." After saying this, he was the first to step onto the deck. He looked at the impressive sight of several ships connected by iron chains forming a formidable aircraft carrier. Taking a deep breath, he thought that no matter how strong the enemy was, their foundation was even deeper. They were not a weak maritime nation that could be trifled with. After speaking, he waved his hand, releasing countless golden lights from his chest. Thousands of giant drummers with wings dispersed and began to beat their drums. "Advance." The drummers started playing a stirring rhythm. The morale of all the soldiers was instantly boosted, increasing their damage and defense by 30. Everyone's confidence soared as they charged towards Subai's aircraft carrier fleet. When Subai saw the large ships approaching on the horizon, he couldn't help but smile. "Destroyers, attack. Sink those wooden ships." "Aye, Commander." The destroyers, using turbo gas engines, moved at incredible speed, far surpassing the enemy's diesel engines. They easily surrounded the enemy's battle group. "Humph, they think they can surround our hundreds of ships with just these? It's simply a dream. Close in on their ships and annihilate them." The ships from the outer region began to approach Subai's destroyers. 50 meters to attack range. 30 meters to attack range. All troops on the large enemy ship prepared for an attack, waiting to concentrate fire on Subai's destroyers. Suddenly, to their surprise, the enemy's frontal 155mm naval gun fired the first giant shell, striking firmly against their ship. Instantly, flames erupted, and a massive explosion created shockwaves. Dozens of soldiers were killed on the spot. A large hole was blasted into the deck of the ship by cannon fire. No one could figure out how Su Bai's destroyer could shoot so far. At this moment, the second round of shelling began again. This time, over 100 soldiers were killed. Among them, several ships on the periphery were left with large holes from the blasts. Water continuously flowed in. One projectile came in from the left and pierced through to the right, leaving a chilling impact. The commander on the ship gaped in disbelief, struggling to accept it all. How could this be possible? How could this be? This ship had a wooden hull reinforced with iron and was equipped with the latest diesel engine, allowing it to stay afloat in the ocean. 1 ship, 2 ships, 3 ships, 4 ships. After 5 rounds of bombardment, the destroyer had already sunk over a dozen enemy vessels. The sea was filled with floating enemy commanders, while some ships were conducting rescue operations. Request support from the naval forces. MacArthur crushed his pipe in his hand. Yoshi, it's finally our turn. The forces from the neighboring country, filled with vengeance for their emperor, surged forth. More than 100 warships from the neighboring country split from the rear flank, heading towards the back of Su Bai's destroyer, preparing for a counter-encirclement. From a distance, Su Bai, watching the battle from an aircraft carrier, noticed the enemy splitting off part of their forces. He initially intended to ignore it, but upon seeing their flag and the name Yoshino written in Chinese characters, he was instantly enraged. After the surrender of the small nation, they had vowed not to use names of ships that once invaded his homeland for their new navy vessels. Unexpectedly, they returned to using the names from that humiliating chapter in history. The enemy flagship, Yoshino, Takachiho, Akitsushima, and Suralami were all names of the ships deployed by the neighboring country during that great naval battle. Su Bai's anger surged, and he turned it into action. All destroyers, turn the bow and engage the navy of the neighboring country. The raging sea displayed the true colors of a man. Attack. Destroy their iron ships. Let them know that last time we could bully them at will, and this time we can do it again. The Yoshino was the first to fire. Heavy catapults on the deck launched 5 burning boulders in quick succession. It was meant to be a surprise attack, but fortunately, the destroyer turned quickly and easily dodged the projectiles. Su Bai's deep voice commanded, fire. At the same time, the wide-caliber cannons on the destroyer fired heavy shells. One shell struck the side deck of the Yoshino, creating a tremendous explosion and a large hole. On the Yoshino, the crew and commander were horrified. They had never expected that their supposedly sturdy warship would suffer such damage, especially since the neighboring nation had been biding its time for years. The ironclad structures have become thicker, capable of withstanding massive fireballs and ice arrows, not to mention spears and bows. Even the stones hurled by catapults cannot penetrate the deck. Compared to naval forces from certain regions, it is said that one is not allowed to construct aircraft carriers or similarly large ships. Ordinary vessels, however, are still world-class. With a loud battle cry, the entire army charged forward, followed by rounds of cannon fire. The advanced ships from the fleet, including Takachiho, Akitsushima, and Surigazaki, sank one after another. Even the flagship Yoshino was hit, and the vice-admiral was killed instantly. The deck was engulfed in flames, and sailors frantically scooped seawater to extinguish the fire. The commander-in-chief, injured and with his once white naval uniform now charred, felt an overwhelming sense of despair. After several rounds of engagement, the enemy's destroyers had suffered no losses, while over 80 of his own ships had been sunk. Blood oozed from his gums as he raised the sword granted by the emperor. Yoshino, all officers and men, heed my command. Full speed ahead. Sink their iron ships. Chapter 142. Even with the powers of the fruit, I can still eliminate you in an instant. The remaining 20% of the fleet charged toward the enemy's destroyers, embodying the spirit of a suicide squad. Smiling, he thought that fortune had turned in his favor today. Since you seek death, I shall grant it. Destroyers, follow orders. Begin the retreat while engaging the enemy. Maintain a safe distance. Following the new orders, the destroyers quickly spread out. While engaging the enemy, they successfully created distance between themselves and the remaining enemy ships. Meanwhile, nearly all of the remaining 20 ships had sunk, leaving only one, the Yoshino. For the emperor. Long live. Boom. Cannonballs were fired simultaneously, and the entire ship was blown to pieces, sinking to the seabed. On the surface, many struggling soldiers were seen, thousands in number. Frowning, he wondered how there could still be so many. With a wave of his hand, he ordered the dolphins to eliminate the struggling soldiers in the water. His brutality shocked the students. The class leader, unable to contain himself, remarked, "Isn't that too cruel? According to the Geneva Conventions, they are prisoners of war and need assistance." He shot a glare at the boy, causing him to tremble in fear. What nonsense is this? In my eyes, there are no such conventions to follow. When this group invaded the Dragon Country, did they adhere to the Geneva Conventions? Now that it's their turn, they expect me to comply? Isn't that just absurd? Ignorance is no excuse. If anyone speaks out of turn again, I won't hesitate to eliminate another comrade. His words were cold, his gaze icy and piercing. The squad leader, already cramping in his calves, nearly fell to the ground, gasping for breath, but felt extremely defiant inside. How dare you, killing prisoners of war? I'll report you to the military court. Let us see if you can still act tough. On the other side, Subai was without support from the destroyers. The morale of the opposing forces surged. They quickly moved towards Subai's flagship aircraft carrier. All units, prepare to engage. Approach the enemy vessels. Begin close combat. Close combat, also known as boarding combat, involved both side ships coming together for hand-to-hand fighting. MacArthur was feeling triumphant, convinced of victory this time. Not good. The enemy is charging at us. Quickly, withdraw the ships. A student standing at the deck's edge spotted the approaching aircraft carrier from the opposing side and shouted towards Subai. Subai closed his eyes, exhaled, and said with ease, "Finally, it's about to end. Launch the aircraft." On the deck, 3 Super Hornet fighters were equipped with electromagnetic catapults. Ready, launch. With a roar, the 3 Super Hornets soared into the sky, tracing beautiful parabolic arcs towards the enemy aircraft carrier. The massive roar of the engines echoed across the sky, causing students to cover their ears. Some couldn't help but exclaim, "It's so loud. Is that a sonic attack?" Of course. They didn't realize this was the noise produced when the fighters broke the sound barrier. The Super Hornets effortlessly reached above the enemy forces. Some had noticed the aircraft in the sky, but at such a high altitude, both sides should be relatively safe. It was too high for the ship's air defense units to reach. Don't panic. It's just their reconnaissance units. Continue advancing. Prepare for close combat. After analyzing the situation, some ship commanders instructed their crews. "Commander, we can begin the strike." From the cockpit, the pilot signaled Subai, "Attack." "Yes, sir." The missiles on the Super Hornets launched towards the enemy aircraft carrier below. Boom. A massive explosion erupted, and the ship hit by the missile immediately rolled over. Smoke billowing into the sky. Soldiers on the deck were blown to pieces. Crew members from various ships cried out in horror. After one round of strikes, the 3 Super Hornets returned to the carrier. The opposing forces lost 3 large warships. Subai shook his head. No, the firepower is still too weak. He could see that while the enemy feared his firepower, they were still determined to charge at him. This proved that these losses were still within the enemy's tolerance. We need to increase the dosage. Another round of Super Hornets took off. This time, 4 invading fighter jets and 4 helicopters flew out from Subai's Stone Sea. Joining the battle, boom after boom echoed as enemy ships were engulfed in explosions, with fighter jets executing a staggered bombing attack in the air. Ships kept sinking, and many soldiers were torn apart by the blasts. The smell of blood from the war filled the air, making one feel nauseous. The surface of the sea was stained with blood, and the sinking ships created waves of foam. This scene was truly terrifying. "General MacArthur, more than 30 of our large ships have already sunk, including 2 aircraft carrier groups that are ablaze and cannot be extinguished," his subordinates reported. Yet, MacArthur remained unusually calm. "Don't panic, we are about to win." After saying this, between the sky and the sea, his super bombers began to beat the drums. The rhythm of the drumming was so synchronized that it gradually resonated with the air. MacArthur stepped out of the command room and onto the deck. With a firm grip of his hands, the air in front of him trembled and shattered. As a naval general, if I didn't have special skills, how could I hold this position? Come on, let the entire space tremble for me." With the shaking of the space, Subai's fighter jets encountered problems while bombing. Not only did their trajectories deviate, but when attacking the enemy flagship, they unexpectedly exploded in midair. The entire ship seemed to be enveloped in a transparent protective shield. Therefore, Subai ordered the fighter jets to cease their attacks and sent flying soldiers to investigate. A large group of flying soldiers approached the airspace above Marshal MacArthur. Braving the enemy's heavy fire, "My air compressor has malfunctioned." In the distance, Subai's flying soldiers fell one after another from the sky, as if they had been sprayed with insecticide. Some managed to return to report, stating that as they neared the enemy flagship, the air began to vibrate, causing their compressors to fail. Subai blinked, wondering if that old man had eaten a devil fruit. How could he make the air vibrate? Would a tsunami occur next? In that case, let's play a boarding battle on this ironclad ship. Chapter 143. Tanya blows up ships. Worth trusting the 2 fleets drew closer, officially commencing a bombardment. On Subai's side, numerous tanks were stationed on the outer side of the aircraft carrier, firing at the enemy's large ships. After a version upgrade, waves of heavily armored soldiers emerged from Subai's Stone Sea. Subai deployed them to the edges, where the armored soldiers held rocket launchers. They are targeting siege units on enemy ships, such as catapults, trebuchets, and heavy crossbows. Since these are fixed targets, they can easily destroy many of the enemy's heavy units. At the same time, the snipers are also making significant contributions, with enemies falling in droves. However, it must be said that the opposing side has some skills in boarding tactics, which have caused many casualties among Subai's soldiers. The ships are filled with ranged units that can concentrate fire and unleash extremely high damage in an instant, which even Subai's heavy tanks cannot withstand. Moreover, Subai's attacks often suffer from deviations, resulting in misses. This showcases the strength of their opponent. The students who were arguing moments ago rushed to Subai's side. We're doomed. Engaging in a direct clash with their aircraft carriers is like hitting a stone with an egg. With so many ranged units on the other side, we can't compete. One of the students asked, "What should we do?" "I've regained some energy and can summon some units," Subai replied. In this critical moment, they finally united again, ready to fight to the death against the looming threat. Subai smiled. Any previous concerns had vanished. The distance between the enemy ships and theirs was too great for a special attack to succeed, but now that they were so close, focusing all their efforts on a counterattack would make a special operation much easier. The blonde, wavy-haired Tanya was summoned. "Hi, baby. Load those ships with explosives and sink them." "Okay, just remember to cover me," she said, diving off the edge of the aircraft carrier like a graceful mermaid in the ocean. Subai commanded 5 dolphins to act as her escort for safety. To Subai's astonishment, due to Tanya's overwhelming charm, the dolphins began to show affection, repeatedly rubbing against her. Wow, I didn't expect these marine animals to be so affectionate. So, Subai issued new orders for the dolphins to spread out and advance in a fan shape. Soon, Tanya approached the first large aircraft carrier of the opposing side. She submerged beneath the ship, searching for its weak points. Such a massive vessel, like their linked aircraft carrier, consists of 8 or 10 giant ships connected by iron chains, allowing it to move steadily through the ocean, as if it were on land, without the risk of seasickness. Even if one of these ships developed a leak, water could flood in, but it also has watertight compartments to ensure it wouldn't sink. Therefore, Tanya, who was even capable of blasting missile-launching ships, had an excellent understanding of ship structures. He installed 8 C4 explosives on each side, front, and back of these 8 large vessels. "General, incredible. Your units always play a crucial role in every operation. Although we've suffered significant losses, in terms of firepower, we are definitely not inferior to the enemy." The captain flattered General MacArthur, who was quite pleased. "Of course, in combat, my units may not be the best in the world, but when it comes to support roles, hardly anyone in the entire nation can rival me. Order the foremost aircraft carrier to advance further and press the attack." "Yes, sir." But no sooner had the words been spoken than the front section of the nearest enemy aircraft carrier exploded. The blast started from the outermost ship and quickly spread, one after another, causing the entire interconnected fleet to sink as if dragged into the depths. Seawater poured in relentlessly, pulling each vessel down in a chain reaction. The troops still attacking on the deck lost their footing due to the severe tilting and fell. What is happening?" MacArthur exclaimed in shock. The captain, who had just issued the command, was equally bewildered. What on earth is going on? It turned out that the 2 central ships, pulled taut by chains on both sides, snapped apart in the middle. Countless soldiers fell into the sea, becoming easy targets for snipers. On the surface of the water, floating heads bobbed like watermelons, one after another bursting and staining the sea red. After destroying one ship, Tanya did not pause in her work. She swam toward 2 other distant enemy aircraft carriers. In less than 10 minutes, these 2 chained-together carriers also began to sink gradually. Only then did Tanya swim back to the deck of her own aircraft carrier. "Well done. Thanks to the dolphins as escorts, I was able to hold on to their dorsal fins and swim quickly to the underside of the enemy warships to plant the C4 explosives," Tanya explained. "Subai, Navy SEALs, listen up. Castrate all the male dolphins." "Yes, sir." "Damn it. These little beasts dare to take advantage of my woman. Don't think I want to deal with you just because you're a protected species." Next time, for such missions, Subai would deploy female dolphins instead. The successive sinking of aircraft carriers quickly demoralized everyone in the opposing nation. "Notify the entire army to continue the attack. We are retreating immediately." MacArthur issued his final command, sending his subordinates to their deaths while he made his escape. As for his own safety, he wasn't overly concerned because his special ability could manipulate space, altering the trajectory of enemy attacks and ensuring he wouldn't meet his end. Trying to run. Destroyers, intercept. After tidying up the situation in a certain country, all the naval destroyers returned. They struck a heavy blow to the enemy from the left flank, tearing a huge gap in the enemy's fragmented line. Suddenly, 7 or 8 enemy ships sank. Subsequently, the destroyers did not linger and swiftly surpassed the enemy's last aircraft carrier, blocking its path. The cannons fired, but all the shots were influenced off course, causing only minor damage to the entire ship. At the same time, apart from that one ship, the rest sank into the sea, with debris floating on the surface for several kilometers, resembling a small island in the ocean. With a wave of his hand, the aircraft carrier moved closer. "Ladies and gentlemen, I admit that the naval strength of the Dragon Kingdom indeed took us by surprise. As the naval marshal and supreme commander, there is still some foundation here. I believe everyone has seen that my ship is invincible. No fireball, arrow, or ice explosion can break through it. Now that you have achieved victory in this battle, I hope we can part ways amicably. Let's each go our own way. Although only one ship remained, the marshal still exuded a commanding presence, standing calmly on the deck. Chapter 144. The condition for peace talks is that both sides have comparable strength. However, do you possess that strength? The marshal's meaning was clear. You cannot do anything to me. It would be better to treat me as inconsequential and let me go. Before the speaker could respond, a class leader from the second year stepped forward. You renegade. A coward who fears death. You can be released. But what isn't it for us? The speaker was taken aback. This guy really knew how to seize opportunities, as if he had won the battle himself. At a critical moment, he was putting on a show, preparing for a historical moment. This brave man. How about this? Ahead lies the Pacific Ocean, where we have a naval base named Pearl Harbor. Our troops have already withdrawn from there. If you let me go, that port will be gifted to your country. Upon hearing this, everyone became excited, especially the second-year class leader, who found himself negotiating with a naval marshal from an opposing country and snagging a piece of the pie. What a remarkable achievement. All right. However, I also need you to sign a guarantee that I will be allowed to leave safely. When I return, I can report this matter to the leader. No problem. Subsequently, someone from a small boat came aboard the aircraft carrier to sign a treaty with the class leader. Let them go, and when I report the merits, I will also add your name at the end. After signing, the class leader said to the speaker, Buddy, the contract you signed with him has nothing to do with me. I just want to kill him. What? You know you can't kill him. Why not just let him go? Subai said lightly, can't kill? That's just due to insufficient firepower. In the distance, along the horizon, 10 massive battleships appeared. Shrouded in mist, identical to the aircraft carrier Subai was standing on. He felt the firepower was inadequate, which led to the emergence of 10 aircraft carriers. They had finally arrived, albeit a bit late. However, it was still good to show the enemy his firepower. Attack! The Super Hornet fighter jets from the aircraft carrier took off simultaneously, 33 of them, filling the sky. Missiles were launched. Bastard. Treacherous bastard. As explosions erupted in the air, the spatial distortion of MacArthur activated once again. Unfortunately, the power of the bombs was too great, and these spatial distortion tactics had little effect, deviating from their intended paths. However, with the target being so large, it still couldn't change the fact that the bombs landed on the deck of the battleships. Boom, boom. Explosions echoed as flames soared into the sky. Simultaneously, all of Subai's troops launched a saturated attack from the aircraft carrier's deck. No matter how strong MacArthur's defenses were, they couldn't withstand such a dense assault. Soon, the aircraft carrier was engulfed in flames, with numerous commanders from the opposing side perishing. Countless people caught fire and jumped into the sea, but extinguishing the flames was futile. No, you can't do this. Your actions will invalidate the legitimacy of taking Pearl Harbor. The sergeant in front of him was even more anxious than MacArthur, jumping around and shouting. Subai had finally had enough. He took out his Browning and shot twice at the sergeant's legs. His lower legs were blown off, and he knelt down, surrendering. On the sea, flames shot into the sky as everyone watched the enemy's aircraft carrier be consumed in this grand bonfire. In the end, only charred wooden planks floated on the water. At this moment, the powerful navy of the opposing side was completely annihilated. Shock. Utter shock. Just then, a signal was sent from the sky in the distance. Reinforcements from another nation had arrived, led by the new principal of a prestigious academy in the capital, Kai Yuanpei. As he landed, the sergeant with his bandaged leg immediately crawled to Kai Yuanpei's feet, tugging at his pants and crying out, Principal Kai, I formally report. This guy has killed the officers of the fallen forces and murdered the enemy commander. Then, he pulled out a crumpled document from his chest. And this is the treaty I signed with MacArthur, all in our favor. And yet, he killed them. The treaty will definitely be torn apart. This person is truly despicable. Additionally, after I pointed out his mistakes, he actually opened fire on his allies, resulting in my legs being broken. I demand that he be brought to a military tribunal for trial and execution. The more the squad leader spoke, the more twisted his expression became. And he started to lose control, spitting saliva all over Kai Yuanpei. Kai Yuanpei kicked aside the second-year squad leader in front of him. Is this kid out of his mind? Classmate Subai, thank you for your support. The remaining students on the ship were instantly shocked upon hearing the name Subai. Subai? The one who led the school team to defeat the formidable opponent from the Cherry Blossom country. The one who dared to shoot the grade leader in the auditorium. This man in front of them was actually Subai. His excellent gear had concealed his appearance, and they didn't recognize him. What a shocking revelation. Especially the second-year squad leader. You are Subai? Su Xiaoyao walked over, grabbed Subai's arm, and introduced him to all the classmates. It turns out everyone just recognized him. Yes, he is my childhood friend, Subai. Saying that, She leaned in and kissed Subai on the cheek. Everyone came to their senses and whispered among themselves. Indeed, beautiful women love heroes. So it's Subai? That makes sense. Yeah, when can a toad eat swan meat? Swans are merely playthings for the strong. Some people console themselves. Forget it, don't think too much. The goddess who is out of reach in their eyes is just a toy in the eyes of the wealthy. Sigh. It's better not to think too much and just focus on studying and get some rest at night. Since you are Subai, how can you do such despicable things? Aren't you afraid I'll expose you? The squad leader was still unconvinced, pointing at his broken legs. Can he still act arrogantly? Since classmate Subai knows the law and breaks it. Hurry up and put him in prison. Make him compensate me. He is so rich. Compensating me 1 or 2 billion should be no problem. Kai Yuanpei couldn't help but curse. What an idiot. How can this kid be so foolish? Last time, when someone shot a teacher at school, it was reasonable and legal. They were just dealing with traitors, and even the provincial leaders nodded in approval. This guy must have had his brain kicked by a donkey. How should we handle this? This guy disrespects Subai with his words. Subai is a very magnanimous person. Let him become someone useful to society. With a slight movement of his fingers, he activated Ghoul Dan's skull. This guy then transformed into a new demon guardian. Principal Kai, it seems that all the countries invading our nation have been repelled now, right? Kai Yuanpei nodded in agreement. That's good. I will act alone from now on. I do not represent any country or region, only my personal actions. What does that mean? Chapter 145. The powerful Kirov makes its appearance, signaling the great Red Dawn. Subai's intention was clear. He was about to conquer the nation alone. This declaration was like a thunderclap, shocking everyone present. No matter what Kai Yuanpei did or said, the current Subai was beyond the reach of his royal guards. He could only nod and leave with the remaining people. Subai did not rush to take over the port area. Instead, he turned to the coastline of a neighboring country. As soon as the aircraft carrier arrived, this nation quickly surrendered, waving a white flag. However, it was not that easy. 11 aircraft carriers relentlessly bombarded the main island day and night. According to media reports, combined with casualties from other attacks, the total number of injured and dead reached over 500,000. Even so, Subai felt it was still too few. After all, the number of casualties inflicted on his homeland by the enemy had been far greater. Thus, he arrived at the port to construct a naval dock. Massive missile ships, along with air defense vessels and submarines, formed a new navy that set sail towards the opposite shore. Meanwhile, the previous aircraft carriers remained in the neighboring country's main island and surrounding isles, continuing their bombardment. The Kirov reported in. A massive Kirov airship emerged from Subai's territory, becoming his temporary operational command center for the mission. Commander General, this powerful aerial strike force represents the absolute might and unwavering faith of our military. On board, operators were introducing the formidable Kirov, a vessel designed for warfare. With a sturdy frame and powerful special armor that made it extremely difficult to destroy, even in the face of typhoons and tornadoes. The enormous ammunition bay was filled with armor-piercing rounds, ensuring that beneath the Kirov, there would be nothing but rubble and ruins. The operators wore proud expressions, their hearts seemingly bursting with strong conviction. Subai nodded in satisfaction. After all, staying on the airship was much more stable than on the sea, offering greater comfort, a clearer view, and a better mood. He was just concerned about the storms of the Pacific potentially damaging this aerial behemoth. Hearing reassurances from the crew, he felt somewhat at ease. 20 days later, in the evening in San Francisco, the citizens were still immersed in the anticipation of a vibrant nightlife. The Golden Gate Bridge was bustling with traffic. The recent news of a naval defeat did not concern the citizens at all. The reason was simple. There was an entire ocean separating them from their enemy, making any maritime approach a daunting task. Meanwhile, they could afford to wait and defeat their opponents with ease. Moreover, there are enormous tornadoes over the Pacific year-round, making it extremely perilous for ships to navigate through this area. Furthermore, this country is vast, with military forces deployed everywhere, and each state has its own national guard. The total military strength exceeds 1 million personnel. No matter how powerful the other country is, can it transport 1 million commanders here? Clearly not. Therefore, these individuals are undaunted. Even if the navy is depleted, it can be rebuilt. As long as the homeland remains unscathed, it is an invincible presence. At this moment, the bridge suddenly became congested. Some people opened their car doors and stepped out to gaze into the distance. They all raised their heads in unison, pointing at something far away. In the sky, a giant creature was floating toward them. Its earthy yellow, olive-shaped exterior and the shark-like smile on its face made everything seem absurd. What kind of flying unit is this? I've never heard of a national team with a shark logo. Oh, this is enormous. As the aircraft flew over the bridge, its shadow fell upon everyone. The bomb bay opened, and one by one, aerial armor-piercing shells began to drop onto the bridge. With each massive explosion, the once bustling bridge grew even more chaotic. The shells struck the bridge, creating large craters, while cars on the bridge were engulfed in flames, resulting in a series of explosions. Like a chain of giant firecrackers going off from one end to the other. Many spectators were also consumed by the fire. After the explosions, the bridge lay in ruins, resembling a pile of broken bricks. Without the height restrictions of the bridge, submarines and warships from the opposing forces moved forward. Indeed, the enemy had landed. All troops prepare for battle. As the front line of the war, this city also had numerous coastal defense facilities. For instance, there were many fireboats filled with oil on the river's surface. With the engines roaring, the tactic of using fireboats to ram the warships was initiated. Charge toward the enemy's iron ships. The crew jumped into the water as the ships, with their steering wheels welded shut, sped toward the warships. Observing from the Kirov, one individual couldn't help but laugh. This tactic has been around since the Ming Dynasty, and it's surprising to see it still in use today. Unfortunately, they do not understand the value of the octopus. Suddenly, giant tentacles emerged from the water, wrapping around the fireboats. One by one, the massive tentacles dragged these fireboats under the surface. A soldier who jumped into the water to escape saw a huge eye beneath the surface. As their gazes met, the soldier was immediately startled and choked on water, nearly drowning. It was a gigantic octopus, so massive that, in their minds, only elite commanders from the Navy could summon such a creature. Regular commanders were simply incapable of doing so. These individuals wanted to flee, but the long tentacles effortlessly ensnared them. The tentacles tightened like a python, and the sound of bones cracking echoed repeatedly. These people released their last bubbles, becoming mere specters in the sea. Subai was quite pleased. He initially thought that the giant octopus would be ineffective in combat, only useful during the Civil War. He never expected it to perform so well in this world. If those fire dragon ships had collided with a battleship, it would certainly have caused some damage. With the giant octopus, such incidents were completely avoided. Moreover, if the octopus perished in battle, it could still be retrieved for a delicious squid feast. Just thinking about it was delightful. No wonder Subai was so formidable. Even an octopus could be mind-controlled. This was quite exhilarating. Meanwhile, in the DC area, at the White House, Mr. President, the enemy has reached our homeland. The president, sipping on a soda, nearly choked. He quickly adjusted his messy hair. No way. How could they arrive so quickly? The Congress hasn't even discussed how to negotiate a peace treaty with the opposing nation yet. This is too fast. Chapter 146, Military Action. Things have changed. Location, San Francisco. Notify the Defense Department to convene a meeting. The president shouted, and all high-ranking officials gathered immediately. We are currently on a level 2 alert. Subai has organized a powerful army that has already landed on the West Coast. In the White House, on the large screen, all officials whispered among themselves while listening to the report from the female intelligence officer. Subai? Who is Subai? Is he a special force from the opposing nation? The female intelligence officer replied, Subai is a national of the opposing nation, now acting independently and not affiliated with any unit from there. He has landed in San Francisco with his own forces and established a base on Alcatraz Island, where he has constructed many other devices. After a round of discussion, all officials agreed that this was the first time the homeland had been attacked. It might be better to meet Subai's demands and have him withdraw his troops. A small expenditure could resolve a significant issue. The relic was activated. Subai appeared on the large screen through a communication link. Subai, Subai, Subai. Tone gradually softening. The war between us and the Dragon Nation has ended, and we are discussing reparations. So, could you withdraw your troops now, so we can coexist peacefully? The president stood up from his chair with a friendly expression. How about I grant you a presidential pardon? It will protect you from international warrants. I'll even give you Pearl Harbor. You can rule there independently, establish your own nation, and become its leader. How does that sound? Faced with this sudden communication, Subai remained expressionless. What I want to rule is the Eagle Nation, my dear Mr. President. The president was furious. This young man doesn't he know what is good for him? You can't threaten me. We are the most powerful nation in the world. Once the communication ended, the president immediately notified the Secretary of Defense to deploy the Air Force. Eliminate the enemies on Demon Island. 5 aerial combat groups took off from inland and swiftly approached the vicinity of Demon Island. Command, this is Magic 1. We are closing in on the target. Received. Attack Subai's garrison on Demon Island. Standing on Demon Island, Subai spotted the approaching magical wyverns in the distance and immediately prepared anti-air defenses. On Demon Island, aside from the Yuri mobile construction vehicle deployed from his Stone Sea, there were also 6 newly constructed Gatling cannons for defense. Originally, Subai had intended to deploy the Yuri mobile construction vehicle within his Stone Sea to continuously produce troops. Unfortunately, available space in the Stone Sea was already limited, making it impossible to construct so many Yuri buildings. Moreover, After several consecutive major battles and Su-bai's acquisition of the Golden Tiger Talisman, his troop capacity had increased. But his gold reserves had been severely depleted. With little resupply in between, Su-bai took the risk of constructing the Yuri mobile construction vehicle outside. This way, in the future, he could build a salvage depot to recycle all the cars and trucks of the Eagle Nation and convert them into war funds. As the magical Wyvern Corps charged forward, the Gatling cannons, which had been pointing downward, immediately raised their barrels. Like chimneys after an action movie, they stood straight up. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat. These Gatling cannons were defensive units from the Yuri faction, capable of targeting both ground and air units. Each cannon consisted of 2 high-speed rotating Gatling guns, firing 6,000 rounds per minute. They were highly lethal against infantry and flying units. With Su-bai's passive bonuses, their maximum firing rate could exceed 10,000 rounds per minute. No creature of flesh and blood could withstand such firepower. BRRRRT. Giant shell casings littered the ground, and the sky was filled with dense curtains of bullets. The magical wyverns in the air were torn to shreds, their bones and flesh scattered. Bursts of blood mist bloomed like vibrant flowers, resembling a grand red salute welcoming Su-bai's arrival, vivid and dazzling. These 5 magical dragon combat groups consist of the Green Dragon Combat Group, which releases a massive green venom, the Red Dragon Combat Group, which unleashes fierce flames, the Blue Dragon Combat Group, which emits intense cold, and the Yellow Dragon Combat Group, which releases highly toxic spore gas. The most powerful among them is the Black Dragon Combat Group, which can unleash a tremendous dark wind accompanied by a blinding death ray that slices through the ground. These 5 combat groups can be considered one of the most formidable aerial forces in their respective region. A nation capable of gathering 5 types of dragon troops is indeed a rarity in the world. However, these forces are still no match for the storm of bullets from advanced artillery. In less than 5 minutes, 5,000 troops were swiftly decimated, with some intercepted by anti-aircraft vessels stationed in the strait. In the sky, flashes of red and black appeared. This is Magic 1, requesting a retreat. Requesting a retreat. The leader slammed the table in anger. No retreat allowed, since the enemy's air defense is so strong. All of you must land on Demon Island and engage in ground combat. Upon receiving the new orders, the forces in the sky adjusted their positions, continuously evading the enemy's air defense. Some even managed to penetrate the dense firepower net and charge towards the enemy's base. The commander was astonished. He never expected the aerial forces to be so formidable, breaking through his tightly knit defenses. He quickly summoned his anti-aircraft vessels back to Demon Island for interception. Another barrage of fire erupted, intercepting hundreds of magical dragons. However, some still slipped through and unleashed powerful death rays, scorching the ground. The beams instantly illuminated the power plant's biochemical reactor in the Yuri camp. Boom. With a series of explosions, one power plant was destroyed and the other sustained damage. The power supply plummeted, causing the artillery to become incapacitated. The commander's heart sank. Fortunately, at this moment, the enemy's aerial forces had been completely eliminated, and the Demon Island base held for now. Yet, a new problem arose. The commander was out of funds. Continuous construction and troop deployment had drained his resources. Moreover, he was now listed as an international A-level wanted criminal, akin to a leader of notorious factions. Attempts to sell equipment crafted in foreign territories for money were met with headshakes from foreign buyers, fearing sanctions. With no supplies coming in, the situation had become dire. There's one more thing. The resources in the Stone Sea are dwindling as the mining vehicles dig deeper. It seems that as the area expands, valuable materials become scarcer. However, Su-bai is not the type to sit idly by and wait for demise. With the current power supply shortage, he has to think of alternative solutions. He heard that several power plants exist in a certain city. There are still some engineers in his Stone Sea, so he plans to have them secure the power plants first and take over that city. Chapter 147. Occupying the city, the first step in dominating the continent. Commander, the enemy's coastal defense forces have been completely eliminated. The last missile has been launched from the advanced cruiser, and Su-bai is updated on the latest situation. 30 minutes later, Su-bai arrives at the opposite shore of the island, waving his hand. 500 mobilized troops, along with regular soldiers, swiftly enter the city. Rhino tanks and bear tanks lead the way, engaging in firepower attacks against the enemy's garrison. At first, the local defenders were still spouting threats and bravado. However, under the impact of the firepower from modern weapons, the second defensive line established around the hospital building area was quickly breached. In just 15 minutes, over 800 commanders of the enemy's regular army lost their lives, with thousands of fleeing civilians, including many deserters from the enemy ranks, attempting to retreat to the third defensive line centered around the power plant. Yet, they did not realize that their escape was merely the beginning of a nightmare. During a real retreat, these commanders typically had some soldiers to protect them. Such obvious targets became easy prey for Su-Bai's snipers. As they fled, many were picked off by sniper fire. Ultimately, only about 30 soldiers reached the third defensive line centered around the power plant. The power plant area, as the core of the defense in the city, had a significant deployment of enemy troops, establishing semi-permanent barracks and equipping remote units with walls and firing ports. It could be said that they had made full preparations for the invasion of the neighboring nation. However, Su-Bai's forces were even stronger. With a simple mobilized soldier able to take on 100 and armored vehicles capable of facing thousands. Despite the enemy having around 30,000 troops and about 300 commanders stationed there, they could not stop Su-Bai's ferocious advance, breaking through the power plant area. As Su-Bai completely tore apart the third defensive line, the power plant finally opened its doors, welcoming Su-Bai's engineers unconditionally. Power supply was restored, and Su-Bai breathed a sigh of relief. Everything returned to normal. He left some mobilized troops to defend the power plant while the rest continued the pursuit. The more than 100 commanders who fled again were like startled birds, hastily retreating from the city. However, Su-Bai did not let them go. In Su-Bai's eyes, if he could not control the entire city, it proved that he could not truly dominate the region. This was just the beginning. If he could not demonstrate his immense power to the local residents, the opponents would train more commanders to wage war against him. He would definitely be overwhelmed and unable to advance his troops. How could he talk about dominating the region then? Therefore, Su-Bai ordered the armored units to quickly maneuver and split into two wings on either side of the city, intercepting the enemy's retreat path in advance. They formed a pocket encirclement. The 100 commanders who escaped the city were still in fear. So powerful was that the kind of power one person could show leading a troop? Many commanders in the world could manage air, land, and sea operations simultaneously, coordinating multiple types of troops. However, none could achieve perfection in every aspect. How did Su-Bai manage to do it? The only answer in their minds was that a super elite force from a certain country had secretly joined the battle. Moreover, the most important thing was that the military had deceived them. This thought spread like a plague, constantly undermining the morale of this group of deserters. Even though they were temporarily safe and communication between ranks was still smooth, they could not organize these 100 people, along with the thousands of troops, into a disciplined and orderly retreat. The commander responsible for operations in the area was seething with anger, watching these demoralized, useless soldiers. He felt like drawing his sword and killing one to establish authority. If the frontline troops could hold on a little longer and strengthen their resolve, reinforcements from nearby states would surely converge to support the area. But in just under 4 hours, the vast city was lost. This was a huge stain on his life. What was even more infuriating was the military intelligence, which superficially reported a single troop conducting a terror attack. The reality was one of overwhelming force. Damn the Pentagon. And Defense Secretary Austin. This disgraceful individual deceived our noble ranks. They couldn't even figure out the number of enemy commanders. Useless. Fuck. However, no amount of cursing could change the fact of defeat. Now, they could only retreat and regroup to devise a new plan. As the sounds of booming explosions echoed from the front lines, Su-Bai had already fired the first shot in the encirclement. The commanders shouted loudly, "Defend in place. Reform the lines. Assemble. Assemble." Unfortunately, these orders were futile, as everyone had already been terrified by the powerful units displayed by Su-Bai. After all, the disparity in strength between the 30,000 and the 300 was simply too vast. One could only say that they were far too weak. Under the bombardment of the tanks, the first batch of commanders and their troops perished in the fire. Some managed to flee quickly, retreating with their own units. But they collided with other commanders' troops in the chaos. Many soldiers were trampled to death, and some even engaged in infighting. Within half an hour, everyone was forced to a beach on the outskirts of the city. As the encirclement tightened, soldiers and commanders fell one after another. Terrified commanders shouted as they jumped into the sea, hoping to escape the incoming shells. However, they were unaware that in the waters, there were man-eating demons waiting for them. Those were the giant squids. It was time for them to feast. The hundreds of surviving commanders swam deeper into the ocean. These individuals were excellent swimmers, having grown up by the sea, believing that their skills would help them escape. Unexpectedly, a pair of brutal eyes were fixed on them, and as the tentacles surged to the surface, countless limbs wrapped around them. The speed of these tentacles was terrifying, and with a dreadful suction, they pulled the commanders deeper into the sea. In their panic, these individuals became the giant squid's feast. The heart-wrenching screams echoed along the coastline. At this moment, the enemy forces had been completely annihilated. Su-Bai immediately ordered his soldiers to disperse and take control of important buildings in the city. After the battle, all 30,000 enemy troops were wiped out, achieving remarkable results. But Su-Bai's side also suffered some casualties. An engineer under his command suggested occupying several large hospitals in the city. These hospitals could treat the wounded soldiers and restore their health. Subai nodded in agreement, quickly sending engineers to seize the hospitals, allowing the soldiers to gradually recover after the fierce battle. Chapter 148. It's simpler to leave the complicated tasks to the replicants. In the city, as a large urban area in California with a significant population and thriving commerce, chaos prevailed. Refugees were fleeing everywhere, and many parts of the city were ablaze. There was rampant looting, as if it were a hellish nightmare devoid of order. Subai led his troops to the police station. The police chief, Porter, drew a sword and faced Subai, declaring, "I will not surrender." Bang! The Browning fired, and Chief Porter's head exploded. Wiping the dust off his gun, Subai remarked, "Well, you certainly have more courage than the soldiers defending the city." Meanwhile, other soldiers reported that many police stations throughout the city refused to cooperate with Subai's mobilized forces, either not showing up for duty or being indifferent. Of course, after a series of executions, although the police began to go out and maintain order, it was evident that these individuals were double-faced and indecisive. Some officers even provided weapons to local gang members to resist the advancing forces. Subai rubbed his chin. It seemed that these people had been brainwashed for many years, which was why they resisted the arrival of the royal troops. He shook his head and issued new orders to his subordinates. "Understood for now. Don't worry about the order in the city. Instead, go capture the wealthy locals who haven't fled yet and make them cough up some gold coins." Yes. Upon arriving at the position near the power plant, after a round of artillery fire, although the land had been turned over, it was fortunately flat and spacious, making it the best location to build facilities around the power plant. Subai constructed a Yuri barracks and heavy industry for the Yuri faction. The Yuri new soldiers, known for being the strongest infantry with psychic abilities, emerged from the barracks. The Yuri new soldiers were the most basic combat unit of the Yuri faction, distinct from the mobilized troops of other factions. These individuals were specially summoned superhumans with innate psychic powers. By concentrating, they could release psychic energy at a targeted point, unleashing flames to burn their enemies. However, their production cost was quite high, 200 gold coins for one. Subai initially produced 20 of them and deployed them in the buildings near the power plant. At that moment, Tanya came to report. They had dispatched 50 Navy SEALs and 200 mobilized troops to clear out the wealthy tycoons in the city. After interrogation, they had confiscated 500 million in cash, 5 kilograms of gold, and 300 grams of diamonds. "Master, this is the result of today's operation." The wealthy individuals in the city had been confined in a mansion by the SEALs, who used various methods of interrogation to extract all their liquid assets and savings. Upon hearing this news, Subai was not pleased. Although 500 million was indeed a substantial amount, the value of currency had plummeted drastically. The market was flooded with money that no one wanted to buy, let alone exchange for gold. It was nothing but worthless paper. Subai sighed. No wonder the financial center was located there. The world's gold was hidden in those banks. Even if these wealthy households bought gold, they likely stored it there and couldn't retrieve it. Bring those gold and gems over. Yes. In the afternoon, the gold and diamonds were finally transported over. Subai gritted his teeth and finally constructed the psychic amplifier. Every time Subai built a structure, it felt like his heart was bleeding, a pain akin to being cut by a knife. The troop limit had increased, but the funds consumed had also grown significantly. The most important point is to identify the resources in one's own mind, regardless of how much one increases mining efforts. The maximum daily yield can only be fixed at 2,000 points. As a low, deep voice echoed, "Mind control is ready." Subai finally felt a sense of relief. A man with a partially shaved head walked out of the facility. He was graceful and polite, with a deep, magnetic voice that could easily draw people in with his words. "I've been waiting for you, Yuri clone." Subai issued a new command. "For our cause. I have captured a batch of local gentry and tycoons from various enterprises. Although I have extracted gold coins from them, I believe these individuals are skilled merchants, masters of language and persuasion. Ordinary interrogation methods won't work on them. Now, it's time to directly control their minds and make them contribute everything." "At your command, Commander." "They will submit to me," replied the clone. Subai spent his last gold coin and finally created 10 Yuri clones. He sent 6 to control the tycoons and took the remaining 4 back to the police station. At that moment, the deputy director was slacking off, and his subordinates were staring blankly at their computers. Some were even playing solitaire and Plants vs. Zombies, seemingly unfazed by the chaos around the city. Deputy Director Henry, Office Director Wilson, Captain Kevin of Zone A, and Captain Ryder of Zone C, "Come to my office," Subai called out. The 4, who were sipping tea and reading the news, reluctantly stood up upon hearing Subai's order. Deputy Director Henry thought to himself, "This guy has reportedly extracted a lot of gold coins from wealthy individuals, but I wonder if he'll share any with the police station. Who would work for you? Besides, you think you can conquer this region with just a handful of people? It's like an ant trying to swallow an elephant. Ridiculous." You can't even control this small city. And once your main forces leave, you'll be wiped out in an instant. The four entered the office. Subai sat in the director's chair, propping his legs up on the desk, looking like a slacker. How is the neighborhood security? He asked. The deputy director replied, General, we lack manpower at the police station. There are just too many gang members on the streets, and we are powerless. He shrugged, making it clear that they were short on police force and that it wasn't his fault. The other three shared the same grim expressions, echoing the same sentiment. Subai smiled and turned to one of the Yuri clones standing next to him. The clone tapped its temple with a finger. The previously distressed deputy director suddenly changed his expression, drew his sword from his waist, and severed one of his fingers. The other three people were immediately startled and took 2 steps back. Director, what are you doing? I'm punishing myself. I didn't complete the task assigned by General Subai properly, so I'm taking the lead in accepting punishment. The other three instantly changed their expressions and nodded in agreement. We were wrong too. They also cut off one of their fingers when the 4 of them walked out of the office. The police officers in the station were shocked to see their bloodied hands. Director, have you been tortured? Chapter 149. Kind-hearted Yuri, the order in the city has not been maintained well. We voluntarily severed our fingers. We have failed to uphold our responsibility to maintain social order. It hurts. It's our fault. No, Director, that's a bit too much. Yes, haven't we always adhered to nonviolent cooperation? Why have you changed? Suddenly, the director shouted. The people are suffering. And here we are, lounging around. I, as the director, have not fulfilled my responsibilities. Saying this, he drew his sword from his waist and, in front of everyone, cut off another finger. The crowd was stunned. Indeed, it was chaotic outside. Gang members were recklessly engaging in criminal activities. And many honest people had become targets of robbery. As police officers, they had not fulfilled their duties. At this moment, the office director spoke up. General Subai is heartbroken to see our inaction. He also knows that social order is indeed chaotic now. As police officers, maintaining order could put our lives in danger. He has offered a reward of 100 million to our police station. As long as we do our jobs well, everyone can share in the bonus. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. A reward of 100 million. Each person could at least receive several 100,000. How many years of work would it take to earn that much? Everyone's enthusiasm was ignited. Police cars began to roll out, starting to maintain order in every neighborhood. The office director made a cup of coffee for Subai, who leisurely started drinking it. One of the Yuri clones beside him asked, Commander, you really won't give them that much money, will you? Subai replied with a sly smile. What do you think? By around 4 p.m., the 6 Yuri clones in charge of controlling the merchants had completed all their recovery tasks. The previously interrogated merchant tycoons handed over $200 million, 10 kilograms of gold, and 150 grams of various diamond rings and platinum. It could be said that in the entire city, no wealthy person had escaped. Their assets had all been thoroughly extracted. Subai also received another piece of good news. One of the wealthy tycoons was responsible for stock and gold trading. He had contacted several countries willing to buy U.S. dollars and purchased a large amount of gold at a high dollar price, which was expected to arrive by next Friday, weighing a total of 200 kilograms. Very well. Anyway, the currency has become worthless paper. Whichever country is willing to speculate purely in that currency can do as it pleases. Subai informed Yuri, the one controlling the stock traders. As long as other countries are willing to exchange gold for that currency, they are ready to trade at any price. The newly acquired gold will be integrated into the system, and Subai continues to produce Yuri clones and mobilized personnel. The Yuri clones are used to control important personnel in government departments, ensuring they follow Subai's commands to restore social order. The mobilized personnel act alongside the police to maintain public security in the neighborhoods. The city can be described as a bustling metropolis, very prosperous and lively. The urban area is quite safe, leading to a thriving commercial environment, and all nearby threats have been completely eradicated, resulting in continuous prosperity and trade. By managing this area well, Subai's ambitions will progress further. As the wealth of the local tycoons has been exhausted, efforts to capture local gang leaders have begun. These individuals are quite wealthy. They have long been entrenched in the area and amassed considerable wealth. Taking advantage of the chaos in the city, numerous jewelry stores were looted, resulting in significant treasures being stolen. Now, with the mobilized personnel and police capturing them, they have been brought under Yuri's control and have surrendered a substantial amount of money. This money is continuously used to produce more Yuri clones. After a week of purging criminal elements, the major gangs in the city have all been eliminated. Over 5,000 criminals have been apprehended, along with more than 20 gang leaders, and a considerable amount of funds has been seized. At this point, Subai has nearly completed the construction of Yuri's facilities. Particularly, the cloning center has halved the cost of producing personnel. This facility operates day and night, producing Yuri clones continuously. In less than half a month, Subai has produced 200 Yuri clones. These clones have been assigned to various departments such as industry, energy, health, finance, taxation, and human resources. The entire city has basically been brought under control. Meanwhile, Subai announced the abolition of the currency and the return to a gold standard. All those doing business in the city must use gold and silver coins. Sitting comfortably in the police chief's chair, Subai felt relaxed, with Tanya providing security beside him. Indeed, being a ruler is delightful. At this moment, dozens of grassroots police officers rushed in. The controlled deputy chief shouted loudly, "Are you crazy? Do you want to get yourselves killed by barging into General Subai's office?" One of the officers replied, "We want our salaries." "Yes, we want our salaries. Subai promised us a bonus of 100 million. Now that public security has been restored, why hasn't it been distributed? We're here to get answers." Subai smiled. "Ladies and gentlemen, you still have a chance to return to work. Don't pay all the money you promised today, or we will go on strike." "Yes, we will all strike." Subai shrugged and said nonchalantly, "Sure, you can strike, and you can also take an indefinite leave." Subai snapped his fingers, and 50 mobilized personnel walked in, taking their places at the computers to continue their work. These mobilized personnel had learned how to act as proper law enforcement officers while maintaining public order alongside the police. However, they had been somewhat heavy-handed in their approach. When encountering criminals, they didn't bother with warnings and just opened fire with AK-47s. The police were left dumbfounded. Could it be that even they could be replaced? One of them gritted his teeth and spat out a harsh remark. "Fine. I really won't do it anymore. Let us see how clever your men really are." Soon, others followed suit and headed towards the police station's exit. However, as soon as they reached the door, they were stopped by the guns of the mobilized personnel. Subai laughed from behind, saying, "Don't rush. Why are you in such a hurry? Didn't you all take the opportunity to loot and support gang members? We haven't had a proper discussion about that yet." The police turned around, pointing at Subai. "F you, stop slandering us." "Slandering?" With a snap, Subai threw a stack of documents out. "Take a look for yourselves. This is a list provided by the gang leader. I'm sure everyone here is on it." Chapter 150. The elite combatant Boris of the Soviet forces makes his appearance. Subai personally commands the capture of Emperor Fongling. In the southern part of San Francisco, there used to be a massive waste incineration plant. Now, another building with a rich cyberpunk atmosphere has risen. This is the troop recycling station that Subai built to raise military funds. Anyone who is controlled, or any vehicle driver, can enter in exchange for cash. It embodies the concept of environmental protection, low carbon, high efficiency, and energy saving. It has only one drawback. It is somewhat inhumane. But so what? Although Subai is a magnanimous person, he has never been a merciful one. He does not believe in the idea of amnesty and clemency. Instead, all the prisoners from several suburban prisons were escorted here in armored vehicles. Hey, everyone come take a look. Which little darling has arrived? John. In the waiting room, the leader of the Vanderlyn gang, Dachi Vanderlyn, provoked the newly arrived police force. Beside him, the second-in-command of the Vanderlyn gang, Mike, spat on the ground and gave the police the middle finger. "You took our money, and now you want to arrest us? Ha, you're clever. But being clever can lead to mistakes. Today, just like us, you've become prisoners." The police officers who were escorted by the mobilized soldiers looked down with disdain at the gang members who had once been sycophantic and corrupt in their eyes. "Mike, shut your mouth, or I swear my inner beast will tear you apart," shouted one of the soldiers. "Come on, you filthy cops. Now that you're prisoners, you still dare to act tough in front of us. Boss, let's take them out." The tension between the two groups was palpable, and a conflict could erupt at any moment. Just then, several mobilized soldiers fired shots into the air, followed by a round of gunfire. Many legs of both gang members and police were shattered, and numerous individuals fell to the ground, screaming in agony. One mobilized soldier stepped forward, shouting, "You faithless beasts. All you do is embezzle, commit murder, and sell contraband. You disrupt social order without a care for your country. This is what happens to those who lack faith and live under liberalism. Worthless trash. Take them away." Two mobilized soldiers dragged a police officer and Mike, the second-in-command of the Vanderlyn gang, like they were dead dogs, pulling them into the army's collection station. With two screams, smoke began to rise from the station. In the presidential suite of the hotel, Subai paused from his busy work. Tanya, sitting up, looked at Subai's somewhat confused expression and asked, "What's wrong, darling?" "Nothing much, just collected 20 resource points from the scraps." Upon hearing this, Tanya smiled, revealing two sweet dimples, and wrapped her arms around Subai's neck to continue their conversation. A police supervisor and a gang second-in-command only yielded 20 resource points, which did seem rather undervalued. However, Subai recalled that in the Red Alert game, there had been experiments where Marshal Romanov could only exchange 100 resources upon entering the collection station, while the president of a certain country could directly recover 2,000 resource points. Even more absurdly, Some players exploited the system to farm cows, with each cow yielding 1,000 resource points upon entry. Therefore, Subai was puzzled about how the pricing for collecting these humans was determined. He decided not to dwell on it. After all, the people he collected were criminals or those who had committed crimes without punishment. It was like a form of atonement. In the following days, all the criminals from every prison in the city were collected in exchange for money. As a result, the city saw the complete disappearance of the gang members. Many ordinary citizens felt safe enough to go out and conduct business again. Upon seeing the mobilized soldiers, many would salute them and express their heartfelt gratitude, often saying, "Right twist of the neck." Of course, Subai was the most revered figure. After he took over the city, there were no more instances of theft, gang wars, or the sale of contraband harming the community. Citizens no longer had to worry about being shot in the street for no reason. The children in the school no longer have to worry about someone entering with a gun and doing something terrible. Subai's support rate in the entire city far exceeds that of the leaders of certain foreign powers throughout history. Some even took the initiative to petition for Subai to ascend to power and establish a new nation. However, Subai did not agree, as his ambitions lay beyond just this small city. He aimed to control the entire region. By that time, there would be no more bullying or conflicts in the world. A communication screen displayed urgent news. Subai took a sip of the coffee that Tanya had brought over. The signal connected. "Commander, we have successfully landed on the main island of the neighboring country. Please give the order." In the video, a bearded man wearing a wolf fur hat and holding an AKM assault rifle reported the latest battle situation to Subai. This man was Boris, the second hero recruited by Subai, an elite soldier. Initially, at Pearl Harbor, Subai had left the Allied naval forces to attack the neighboring country. After all, no matter how much they bombarded, the higher-ups would certainly hide in the strongest fortresses and suffer no losses. Many soldiers from the Empire still held their defenses, believing their emperor, their god, had survived the onslaught. The public increasingly viewed the emperor as a deity rather than a mere human. Therefore, Subai had another plan: to capture the emperor and show the people that their revered leader was nothing more than a prisoner in his hands. Very well. Breach the enemy's defenses and capture the emperor alive. Understood. In the night, elite soldier Boris led a small team stealthily towards Kyoto. Thanks to Subai's S-11 aircraft carriers bombarding day and night, the power facilities on the main island had long been crippled. The team's actions went smoothly, and they soon reached the Osaka castle, where the emperor resided. The area was vast, surrounded by bamboo groves and numerous bunkers, with many patrolling soldiers outside. Internally, there were significant air defense forces, with the total military presence reaching 100,000 troops. Even the convoy that had once been pursued by the flames of war had not breached this fortress. The emperor lived here without worry, and no chaos outside could affect this stronghold. Subai watched all this through the live feed, realizing he had underestimated the situation. The emperor was indeed living in luxury, with such a grand palace built. "Commander, there are too many people. It's hard to charge in." Boris inquired about the next course of action. "Don't rush. I'll have the Super Hornets from the aircraft carrier come for bombardment support. Take advantage of the chaos to rush in." Chapter 151 Red Alert 3, Classic Campaign. Assassination of the Emperor. 33 Super Hornet fighter jets took off from an aircraft carrier. Under the cover of night, they quickly reached the location of the Emperor's palace. Ace bombers. Ready. Missiles were dropped one after another, and a bunker on the outer wall of the palace along with a section of the wall was instantly destroyed. However, Subai underestimated the strength of the palace guards. As the fighter jets approached the second layer of the wall, enemy alarms rang out. With a series of rumbling sounds, all air defense forces in the city were activated. The Rooster Unit. Air defense. On the ground, 2 air defense battalions immediately released a massive amount of air defense power. The Rooster Unit. This type of unit had no combat capability on the ground, akin to a mere chicken. However, when their semi-mechanical bodies faced the incoming enemies in the sky, the feathers on their tails would automatically launch and target the enemy units, exploding in the air with considerable force. According to the military of the Cherry Blossom Nation, the Rooster Unit was the world's best air defense force. Even the air forces of other nations would avoid or retreat when encountering the Rooster Unit. Suddenly, the Rooster Unit let out a huge cry, and the feathers at their tails quickly soared into the sky, bursting into countless feathers. Subsequently, these feathers seemed to track the attackers and charge towards Subai's Super Hornets. Bang, 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 bang. Countless feather tips struck the alloy bodies and cockpit glass of the Super Hornets. Huh, how weak. Attacking with feathers, keep bombing. The pilot sneered. Although these tips were sharp enough to pierce flying birds or monsters, dealing with steel aircraft was like hitting a stone with an egg, an utterly foolish act. However, something unexpected happened to these pilots. Countless feathers were sucked into the turbine engines. Soon after, all the circuitry in the cockpit malfunctioned. The pilot felt the entire aircraft become weightless, and then it began to plummet. 34. 34. At that moment, the pilot's expression was filled with terror. Before he could react, both the pilot and the aircraft crashed into the Imperial City. Subai witnessed this scene, and, while he didn't feel sorry for the countless small aircraft, he was greatly shocked by the palace's defenses. No wonder after so many rounds of bombing, it remained intact. The Rooster units had contributed significantly. In less than 10 minutes, all 33 Super Hornets had crashed, leaving only a route through the first line of defense into the inner city. It could be said that the entire force was wiped out. At that moment, Boris sent a communication. Commander, we have taken advantage of the chaos to enter the Imperial Palace, awaiting your next instructions. This was undoubtedly a piece of good news amidst a pile of bad news. Good. Taking the opportunity to storm the palace could allow us to assassinate the Emperor, or at least capture him. Of course, although your current troop numbers are small, I will find a way to reinforce you. Boris led his troops onward. Soon, they entered the inner palace, where the Emperor's 3,000 concubines resided. Boris was somewhat troubled. With so many women, how could he find the Emperor? Suddenly, a group of soldiers approached, and everyone quickly hid. How outrageous. The state of affairs is so dire. And the Emperor is in the garden indulging in wine with the concubines, with thousands of beautiful women dancing and waiting for his favor. Is he not worried about the country at all? One soldier complained. Another soldier quickly covered the mouth of the complaining soldier. You can't say that. You can't say that. The Emperor is a divine being. We just need to fulfill our duty as guards. Come on, hurry to guard the entrance to the back garden. Boris stepped out from the shadows, realizing the Emperor was in the back garden. He reported to Subai and then followed up. At the entrance to the back garden, there were actually 6,000 to 7,000 soldiers guarding it, along with over 40 senior commanders. Seeing so many enemies, Subai immediately divided Boris and his troops into two parts. The mobilized troops charged towards the palace hall, firing randomly as they sprinted. Any moving target was met with a barrage of bullets. Molotov cocktails were tossed haphazardly, and the wooden structures soon caught fire. The blazing flames lit up half of the palace sky. In an instant, chaos erupted within the inner palace. A large portion of the defending enemy troops in the back garden were quickly redeployed, leaving only 3 commanders and 500 soldiers to guard. At this moment, Boris emerged from the shadows. He cocked his weapon and was the first to open fire on the defenders. The bullets rained down in a frenzy. Boris's marksmanship was exceptional, with virtually every shot hitting its target. Most importantly, this specially modified AKM assault rifle could easily take out tanks, let alone the mere mortal soldiers at the entrance to the back garden. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The remaining warriors drew their katanas and charged at Boris. However, under the firepower suppression of the AKM, these troops couldn't get close. Instead, Boris grew more courageous in battle, effortlessly dispatching enemies without leaving a trace. After dealing with them, he reloaded and entered the back garden. In the pavilions and on the artificial hills, the Emperor was still playing and frolicking with his concubines, completely indifferent to the explosions outside. Due to his habituation to the daily air raids, Subai was indifferent to the noise. Your Majesty, who will you favor tonight? If not, we might as well all join in, a group of concubines teased, vying for attention. Hey, don't all rush at once. I can't handle it. How about this? I'll blindfold myself with a scarf, and whoever I touch tonight will be the one I favor. The concubines giggled, and the Emperor tied the scarf over his eyes. Here I come, my little treasures. Everyone dodged playfully, wanting to engage in a game reminiscent of a well-known tale. Amid the laughter, a rugged middle-aged man with a thick beard stepped into the pavilion. He moved with a commanding presence, exuding a palpable aura of danger, causing everyone to back away in fear. Unaware of the situation, the Emperor lunged forward, landing directly in Boris's arms. Who is this sister? Such a strong physique. Let me examine you. The Emperor, still laughing, reached out indiscriminately, but suddenly froze. What is going on? He felt again, sensing something was off, and quickly touched Boris's face. Ouch! It's prickly, like a bristle. You're a man. I always have been, Boris replied flatly. How bold. You dare to trespass in my harem. But I like it. The Emperor then unexpectedly made a move against Boris. Watching the live video, Subai was taken aback. With a sharp crack, Boris swiftly broke the Emperor's wrist, causing him to cry out in pain. Finally unable to bear it, the Emperor yanked off the silk scarf. You're not. With a loud thud, he was knocked unconscious. Commander, mission accomplished. Chapter 152. Chun Chao and Wang Xiaohu arrive. A great victory against the enemy. Hooray for our warriors. Good, take him away quickly. If he becomes a burden, you can shoot him, Subai ordered. Just then, alarms blared throughout the palace. A familiar voice echoed over the intercom. Foolish subjects, attempting to defy the embodiment of destiny. Subai was startled. Could it be that Boris had captured the Emperor's double? Thousands of troops quickly surrounded the entire palace. Listen inside. Your assassin team has been captured. If you do not surrender immediately, starting now, we will execute one of your members every minute. The troops outside shouted. It seemed the mobilized forces had been entirely apprehended. The ability to eliminate this 10-person team indicated that the enemy had sent at least 1,000 troops. Meanwhile, Boris began to respond to the outside. Fine. You can kill one of my brothers. I will also execute 10 of the Emperor's consorts. Come on, let's hurt each other. With that, Boris immediately pulled the trigger, unleashing a burst of gunfire that took down several consorts attempting to flee. At the same time, he grabbed one of the consorts beside him. With a tearing sound, a flash of pale skin appeared. He pressed the gun barrel against her, using her as a hostage. You beast! How dare you lay hands on my consorts? You have a death wish. Your Majesty, save me. Please save me. Unnecessary. You are no longer pure and no longer worthy of being my consort. It's time for you to depart. The Emperor's swift change of heart left Su-Bai utterly speechless. Outside, the sounds of beheadings began to echo. A chorus of agonized cries followed as several fell in an instant. However, Boris was powerless at that moment, surrounded by tens of thousands of troops. To fight their way out, they had to rely on the structures of the inner palace and engage the enemy in a positional battle. When will the commander's reinforcements arrive? More sounds of beheadings followed. 3 mobilized soldiers were decapitated. Enraged, Boris swore to drench the palace in blood that day. He rolled sideways to take cover behind a barricade, firing a volley of bullets that instantly felled over a dozen spectral warriors. Simultaneously, the enemy necromancers unleashed 7 or 8 ghostly flames in his direction. Boris quickly ducked behind another barricade. The powerful ghost flames exploded upon impact, releasing extreme heat that pinned him down, unable to lift his head. Haha, spectral on my OG. Continue the assault. Burn him to ashes with the ghost flames. Who dares? Suddenly, a gigantic spear flew out, piercing through more than a dozen spectral on my OG in an instant. The ground was covered in layers of icy frost. The commander besieging Boris turned around abruptly. On the city wall stood 2 young figures, poised and valiant. Go, Daylight Tiger, one of the youths shouted, and from his chest erupted thousands of fierce, multicolored tigers. They charged down the wall like predators descending a mountain, tearing into the enemy ranks. The other youth waved his hand, and a massive hole instantly appeared in the wall beside them. Countless half-human, half-mammoth creatures surged through, engaging in relentless combat. Are we too late, Su-Bai? Thank you. Your timing is perfect. The newcomers were Chen Xiao and Wang Xiaohu. Since the S3 conflict, the two had been stationed to defend Penglai, Immortal Island. During that time, they repelled over 50 attempted invasions by opposing forces. This time, Su-Bai found himself with no troops to deploy and was at a loss. Unexpectedly, a call from old friends quickly resolved the issue. Upon learning of the mission to capture the Emperor alive, the two agreed without hesitation. An aircraft carrier transported them swiftly to the main island, providing urgent support for Su-Bai's hero, Boris. Now, not only were they defending Penglai Immortal Island, but they had also repeatedly honed their skills in this very scenario. Each person is a powerful warrior at the Silver Tiger symbol level. With their ranks rising to level 30, they command thousands of troops. Together with the awakening of the two, each has nurtured their own heroes. Wang Xiaohu. After awakening, the hero is born. Day Tiger. A fierce tiger with black and white ink patterns, possessing 280 agility, 120 strength, and 1,500 health points. He is undoubtedly a king among agile heroes. He also carries 3 passive skills. Phantom, which increases absolute evasion by 50. Cripple, which has a 50 chance to cripple the enemy upon attack, reducing their attack by 60 and movement speed by 60. Bloodthirsty, which increases attack speed by 2 for each enemy killed, with a maximum increase of 200. With such powerful skills, Wang Xiaohu's hero slaughters through the enemy ranks with great enthusiasm, growing bolder with each kill, like a king of tigers and a god of slaughter. On the other hand, Chen Xiao's awakened hero, the Ice Age Mammoth Chief, is even more formidable, with 300 strength, 50 agility, 210 defense, and 4,000 health points. He is like a powerhouse capable of both attacking and boasting exceptional defense. Compared to Wang Xiaohu's hero with 3 skills, the Mammoth Chief has awakened only 2 skills. But these are incredibly powerful and invincible. Resistant Skin, which grants immunity to 80 points of damage. If the enemy's damage exceeds 80, only the damage above 80 is counted. Spear Throw, where the mighty Mammoth Chief can unleash a powerful strike, dealing 200 points of attack, plus 18 times his strength as damage to targets in a straight line. Both of their ordinary troops have also learned basic skills for damage reduction or evasion. Now, these two would definitely rank as battalion-level officers in a regular army. On the battlefield, roars of fierce beasts echo, and icy winds sweep through. Countless heads fly. Boris, my 2 brothers' heroes are quite fierce. You must not lose my people. Yes, Commander. Boris also joins the fray amidst the chaos. In such a tumultuous battle, the AKM in his hands is far more effective than any other weapon. Each shot can take down an enemy, far surpassing Wang Xiaohu and Chun Chao's respective troops. Every time he raises his gun to shoot, an enemy is guaranteed to scream and fall. At this moment, the nearby bunker is brightly lit, with countless arrows raining down. The enemy is launching indiscriminate attacks. Numerous arrows descend, and Wang Xiaohu's azure-eyed tiger dodges left and right, but still gets hit and killed by some. However, many of the enemy's ghost warriors are also shot down. Indiscriminate attack. Wang Xiaohu, quickly let your tiger take cover under my mammoth. Chun Chao's Ice Age Mammoth ordinary troops have ice armor that can absorb 30 points of damage. A rain of arrows fell, and the mammoth warriors were covered in arrows. Although it looked frightening, the actual damage was not high. TCH, is this little damage worth mentioning? Chun Chao scoffed, but the next moment he noticed the problem. The mammoth warriors who were hit began to weaken. Not good. This is a cursed arrow. It can reduce the defense and attack power of the troops. Another round of arrows poured down like a torrential rain. Even the powerful Ice Age Mammoth warriors fell. The situation was extremely critical, and the enemy seemed to have gained the upper hand. The emperor was overjoyed and notified the soldiers via broadcast. The enemy is faltering. Warriors of the empire, cut off their heads. Subai witnessed all of this and hurriedly directed Boris. Use that move. The so-called move was the skill Boris used to attack buildings. He called for MiG fighter jets to come for support using laser guidance. Chapter 153. Any building locked by Boris's laser guidance was as good as dead. Commander? Is it feasible? The enemy's air defense is so strong. Can the planes even get in? You don't need to worry about that. Just do as I say. Boris stopped wasting words, took out the laser guidance device, and aimed at a defensive watchtower. In the distance on the map, 2 MiG-29 fighter jets flew in like a gust of wind, quickly arriving at the laser guidance position and successfully dropping air-to-ground missiles. With a loud explosion, the watchtower was blown away and collapsed. Boris immediately launched a second laser guidance signal. This time his target was the watchtower on the left. Boom! Another loud noise. The watchtower was lifted, and the entire building was blown into pieces. Seeing this, Boris was overjoyed. Commander, hurrah! How did you break through the enemy's air defense? Of course, it was done at the cost of lives. No more chatter. Blow up all the enemy's watchtowers. Yes, it turned out that while Subai directed Boris to bomb the watchtowers, the aircraft carriers simultaneously launched. More than 30 planes split into groups of 3 and flew towards the Imperial Palace. Upon receiving the signal from the attack aircraft, the enemy immediately dispatched air defense forces to attack the aircraft from the carrier, the Super Hornets. Although the pilots of the Super Hornets met their demise, this provided an opportunity for the MiG-29s summoned by Boris. They directly entered the unprotected area of the Imperial Palace map and easily completed their bombing mission. In that brief moment, 2 more watchtowers were destroyed. Wang Xiaohu and Chun Chao felt a significant reduction in pressure, and their powerful forces began to rampage once again. Wang Xiaohu was excited. Chao Gu, we VE captured the Emperor's Palace of the Cherry Blossom Nation. You've read a lot. Tell me, how many times has this happened in history? Indeed, there had never been a case in history where anyone boldly captured the Emperor's Palace of the Cherry Blossom Nation, let alone from our Dragon Nation. This small nation, separated by the vast ocean, frequently invades our land, but in ancient times, we also sent a large army to conquer it. However, they got lucky this time, coinciding with the typhoon season. Our warships were swallowed by the storm, and unfortunately, we couldn't achieve victory. Now, we are making significant advances here, which should be a first in history. Upon hearing this, Wang Xiaohu's face lit up with joy. Don't you like to document and publish your experiences? Make sure to write about this event and portray me as a figure like the great leader of the past. Chen Xiao shot Wang Xiaohu a glance. With you, we can at most be compared to the renowned generals of old. The great leader commanded the entire army. That title should at least be attributed to Subai. He is more fitting for it. Wang Xiaohu slapped his forehead. You're right, I didn't think of that. We are merely generals, able to reach this point thanks to Subai's command. At this moment, only about 1,000 of the 10,000 defending troops remained. However, more enemy forces were continuously rushing towards the royal city. Boris approached the two and offered them a salute. Welcome, my friends. You are my most sincere comrades. From my observations, the enemy is still pouring in. Ahead lies the royal palace where the emperor resides. We should leave some forces here to halt the enemy's advance, while the rest follow me to blow up the emperor's palace. The two nodded in agreement. Unexpectedly, Subai's intelligence proved to be remarkably high. He spoke logically and analyzed the current battlefield situation. His rugged appearance belied a keen insight. Wang Xiaohu couldn't help but feel embarrassed. This is too clever. Can we really call him a hero? I might not even pass a written exam against this bearded fellow. What kind of hero has Subai nurtured? Wang Xiaohu secretly used his exploration medal to check Boris's attributes. To his shock, he discovered elite combat soldier, Boris, strength, 500, agility, 300, defense, 300, health, 3,500, skill, laser-guided AK rapid fire, accompanied by a multitude of buff enhancements. What? You're telling me this is a human hero? With 500 strength, 300 defense, and a chaotic array of buffs? Monsters with thousands of health would be instantly defeated in front of him. According to Wang Xiaohu's memory, the last awakened human hero he knew was an elderly man from the third floor of their apartment building. That hero barely learned how to fix bicycles from him, ending up as a free apprentice. It seemed he would be useless for life. Unexpectedly, Su Bai's human troops, along with the awakened human hero, were so powerful, far surpassing him and Chen Chao. Let's not even talk about the laser guidance that can cause devastating damage to buildings. Just that AK rapid-fire skill can inflict linear penetration damage, ignoring any armor defenses. Its true damage level. This skill might not even be awakened in 1 out of 10,000 heroes. Chen Chao patted Wang Xiaohu on the shoulder. Only then did Wang Xiaohu come back to his senses from the shock and quickened his pace. The two, along with their troops, soon arrived at the castle where the emperor was located. Boris used laser guidance again. The MiG-29 fighter jet was called in, dropped its bombs, and fled. As the armor-piercing bombs fell, the massive castle collapsed with a thunderous crash, shattering cleanly and efficiently. We won. We won. With swords drawn. I never expected that one day I could achieve a feat like Hort Subing and Wei Qing. Brother Chao, when we go back, can we be awarded the title of Wolfguarding son-in-law? What are you thinking? This time we are absent without leave. If we can return without being punished, that would be good enough. You're thinking about titles? Hee hee, if the officials treat us coldly when we return and the common people know about it, that would still be a glorious thing. The two were joking as they left the emperor's palace. Suddenly, the ground shook. From the ruins of the castle, a translucent armored hand emerged. Amidst the smoke, a giant figure slowly stood up. The giant was about 15 meters tall, like a colossus. Suddenly, a black beam of death shot from the giant's head, instantly scorching a trench in the ground. Along this trench, several Ice Age mammoths on this straight line were instantly burned to pieces, dispersing the dust-filled air. The giant's face was unmistakable. Foolish Dragon Kingdom people. I say it again. I am the one chosen by destiny. I am a god. You attempt to desecrate the divine mandate. The only outcome is death. Among the giant, the figure of a frail old man stood with his hands behind his back, floating in the air like a saint ascending to the heavens. Wang Xiaohu was taken aback. This emperor had not died and was instead wrapped inside the giant. Brother Chao, you are well read. What is going on here? Chen Chao slowly took off his glasses. His lips a bit cracked, swallowed, and then spoke. Susanoo. Chapter 154, Flames Burn the Sky. Su Xiaoya returns. Dragon Warrior Evolution. Flame Form. Susanoo? Wang Xiaohu was momentarily confused. Susanoo is a secret technique passed down through generations of the emperor, possessing powerful physical immunity and extremely high attack power. Inside Susanoo, the Emperor Fonglang laughed heartily. That's right. This is the power of our imperial bloodline. Our imperial family spans countless generations, and we cannot bear any soldiers. We can merge with awakened heroes. This is the power of the emperors through the ages, Susanoo. He was halfway through his statement. The emperor shouted loudly, Amaterasu. A black fire immediately ignited in Wang Xiaohu's group of tigers, spreading rapidly. Several fierce tigers were instantly engulfed by the black flames. The remaining tigers, tainted by the black fire, rolled on the ground repeatedly, trying to extinguish the flames. Unfortunately, these ghostly flames were like undying spirits. No matter how they were beaten or suppressed, it was futile. Eventually, the small flames consumed the entire tiger. The emperor continued to laugh, and I am the most powerful ghost king-level Susanoo of the awakened emperor lineage. Wang Xiaohu scoffed. I don't care what kind of Susanoo you are. Fierce tigers. Tear through his armor. Devour him. Hundreds of blue-eyed tigers dodged the emperor's attacks and charged towards him. At the same time, Chen Chao also commanded the remaining mammoth warriors to rush forward. The Ghost King's Susanoo armor swung down with a punch, instantly causing the powerful mammoth warriors to spit blood and fall to the ground. At a critical moment, Boris climbed up to the top of a building and picked up an AKM assault rifle, aiming at Susanoo's eyes. He fired 2 quick shots. The eyes of Susanoo exploded with 2 bursts of metal, followed by the sound of shattering glass, seemingly inflicting damage on the enemy and breaking through their defensive threshold. The massive Susanoo covered its eyes, and in that moment, Wang Xiaohu and Chen Chao's forces had already rushed to Susanoo's feet. The gigantic Ice Age mammoth warriors and Chen Chao's blue-eyed tigers unleashed their immense strength, attacking at Susanoo's feet. Foolish. Susanoo kicked out, sending dozens of soldiers flying instantly. With another foot, it stomped on several Ice Age mammoths, turning them into a pulp. Raising its left arm, it quickly grabbed a few blue-eyed tigers and smashed them against a building, which collapsed into a pile of rubble. In less than 3 minutes, Chen Chao and Wang Xiaohu had already lost over 100 soldiers. Only the bullets from Boris's AKM could inflict damage beyond the defensive threshold. Unfortunately, it was not enough to create a decisive advantage. Foolish, utterly foolish people from the Dragon Kingdom. My Ghost King has 300,000 health points and a defensive threshold of 250. It can be said that physical attacks are ineffective against me. Another beam of black fire from Amaterasu shot out. Chen Chao and Wang Xiaohu quickly dodged, but the flames spread behind them, burning several more subordinates. The two felt a lingering fear. Wang Xiaohu cursed, "Damn it! I didn't expect that old emperor to be so fierce. Super brother, is there any other way?" Chen Chao shrugged his shoulders and let out a quichao. "I didn't expect this old geezer to be so strong." Upon hearing this, Wang Xiaohu gritted his teeth. "Since that's the case, I'll sacrifice myself today." The remaining fierce tigers, charge. Wang Xiaohu summoned his combat weapon, the Qian Kuan Claw, from his storage ring and charged forward with over 100 fierce tigers, shouting, "Brother Chao, I'll hold them off, you run." The emperor in the Ghost King armor raised an eyebrow. "Still thinking of escaping? Fool, none of you will get away." With a punch, Susanoo unleashed a massive wave of wind towards Wang Xiaohu at lightning speed. There was no way for him to dodge. Chen Chao shouted, "Xiaohu." His heart ached as he recalled the times when Xiaohu, Su Bai, and he fought against the little devils at Sangyun Ridge and their humorous days at school. Was this really the moment for a final farewell? In the blink of an eye, a dark shadow swooped in and saved him just as Wang Xiaohu was about to be crushed. The shadow landed, and Wang Xiaohu opened his eyes, feeling his body. Not dead. He found himself cradled in the arms of a dragon warrior. A calm and resolute female voice rang out from the sky. At a critical moment, "You boys are indeed unreliable." Wang Xiaohu and Chen Chao looked up simultaneously. A beautiful and familiar figure appeared under the moonlight. It was Su Xiaoya. "What are you doing here, Xiaoya?" Wang Xiaohu asked. "Did Su Bai inform you, but not me?" Chen Chao laughed. Naturally. He knew about the relationship between Su Xiaoya and Su Bai, so it made sense for her to be called over. Moreover, after a long period of fighting, Su Xiaoya had climbed into the top 10 rankings at the entire Magic City Guard Academy. Thanks to the many rare treasures Su Bai had brought back from another world and the equipment seized from commanders of other nations. Another woman has come. How annoying. Die. The Emperor Fong Lang lifted a huge stone from the ground and threw it into the sky. Su Xiaoya's dragon warriors quickly scattered to avoid it. "Attack!" Chen Chao shouted from the ground. The Emperor's Ghost King armor can immunize 250 points of physical damage. Su Xiaoya smiled. Dragon warriors, flame form. Thousands of dragon warriors in the sky suddenly ignited in blazing flames. As they flapped their wings, a whirlwind of fire dragons began to swirl, blowing towards the Ghost King Emperor Fong Lang on the ground. Thousands of flames immediately enveloped Susanoo, igniting fiercely. In an instant, the vision of the colossal guardian was obstructed. Within this guardian, the Emperor lost sight. He hurriedly commanded the guardian to beat away the flames engulfing it, but the fire was terrifying, almost as if it possessed infinite resilience, tightly wrapping around it. Moreover, many dragon warrior maidens enchanted their swords into flaming blades, aiming for the back of the guardian's neck. Chen Chao and Wang Xiaohu were overjoyed. The reinforcements from Su Bai arrived just in time. This would stabilize the situation. Su Xiaoya's dragon warrior maidens used magical attacks, and the Emperor's guardian could not evade magical damage. However, at that moment, a powerful jet of black flames erupted from the back of the guardian's neck, enveloping many dragon warrior maidens in an instant. After the black flames subsided, only charred remains of the dragon warrior maidens were left. Chen Chao's excitement quickly turned to despair. It still wasn't enough. The Emperor's manipulation allowed him to control the black flames freely, making it flow through the guardian's body like black blood. Wherever it was injured, it would spew out and retaliate against the enemy, making things difficult. Wang Xiaohu was equally astonished. Even Su Xiaoya's formidable troops could not handle the Emperor. Was the Emperor truly an unbeatable deity? Suddenly, the sharp sound of gunfire shattered the confusion. Chapter 155, Warning. Nuclear missile launched. From the wound on the back of the guardian's neck, Boris ruthlessly fired bullets. His accuracy was exceptional, ensuring that every shot found its mark, even as the guardian moved. It couldn't affect his hit rate. The Emperor felt the wound on the back of the guardian's neck deepening. He continued to command the black flames to surge from the wound. Unfortunately, the penetrating power and shooting force of the gun were extraordinarily strong, far surpassing that of a standard handgun. The bullets effortlessly traversed through the black flames, striking accurately at the guardian's wound. At that moment, the Emperor's expression shifted from calm to one of panic, sweat pouring down his face. He was left disoriented, with his line of sight blocked by the dragon warrior maiden's ranged flames. He had effectively become isolated. Crown Prince, Crown Prince Darong, come save me. Hurry. The communicator activated, revealing the bald face of Crown Prince Darong. Father, you called for me? I am being besieged by assassins. Quickly, have the guards outside the city come to my rescue. Crown Prince Darong responded nonchalantly, sipping his coffee while embracing a blonde woman. The emperor's horror turned to authority and anger upon seeing his son with a foreign woman. How many times must I say it? Our imperial family must maintain pure lineage. You're mingling with barbarians again. I say, Father, the current situation is entirely your own fault. Besides, I don't want to associate with outsiders either. Your harem has so many beauties, yet I can only look without touching. It's agonizing. You little brat. Those are my women. They're also your mothers. How dare you disrupt the hierarchy? Quickly summon the army to rescue me. Crown Prince Dalong commands the imperial guards outside the palace, 200,000 strong. Emperor Fonglang demanded the crown prince enter the city for reinforcements. However, the crown prince simply tooted. Alas, you've truly lost your senses. Rest assured, after your passing, I will lead the Sakura Empire to sweep across the world once more. But first, we must usher in a new era. The empire shall be renamed the Rising Sun Empire, a far more fitting title. Emperor Fonglang was shattered. The crown prince he relied on most had turned against him. You. If you want the throne, save me first. I'll abdicate as Grand Emperor and let you rule. Unnecessary. After your death, I will lead the armies to avenge you. Farewell, father. You mother. The communication device cut off before he could finish. With a click, the emperor's Susanoo could no longer hold. It shattered completely, and he plummeted from midair. Both legs crushed into fragments. Boris rushed over, bound him like a dead dog, and slung him over his shoulder. The mission is complete. We can withdraw. Su Xiaoya nodded, having the three mount her dragon maiden warriors to flee the area. Bang, 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 bang. Anti-air defenses on the ground unleashed countless ice arrows into the sky, instantly killing several dragon maidens scouting ahead. Su Xiaoya frowned deeply. It's no use. All four directions, east, south, west, and north, are covered by enemy anti-air. We can't break through. A new problem emerged. How to escape encirclement by 200,000 enemy troops. Just then, loudspeakers blared from all sides. I am the new Crown Prince Dalong. My father, Emperor Fonglang, has been assassinated by operatives from the Dragon Kingdom. I hereby formally ascend as the new emperor. All troops, tighten the encirclement. Not a single fly shall escape. Kill the Dragon Kingdom agents to avenge my father. Avenge him. Avenge him. Avenge him. The roar of 200,000 soldiers surged like a tsunami. Chen Xiao and Wang Xiaohu had never faced such overwhelming numbers directly, and their confidence wavered. Brother Qiao, you once told the story of Shui Ringgui, who single-handedly charged into enemy ranks and was hailed as a warrior against 10,000. Are we, like that now? Chen Xiao forced a bitter smile. More like we're the ones being fought by 10,000. Even Su Xiaoya felt adrift, her usual composure gone. Here, surrounded, her strength is the strongest. Her performance in the humanities is no less than that of Chen Xiao. Yet, she can't think of any strategies to break through. A layer of sweat appeared on her forehead. Her brows furrowed. What should she do? What can she do to break through? Who can tell me? At that moment, Su Bai's voice rang out. Su Xiaoya, you three need to hide about 10 meters underground within 10 minutes. A big move is coming. What big move? Su Xiaoya asked in confusion. The Dongfeng Express. The Dongfeng Express? All right, enough chit-chat. The emperor should know the location of the underground shelter. Let him lead you there. Su Xiaoya nodded and didn't say more. Boris used a bit of forceful means and easily led the emperor and others to the treasure vault in the palace's underground. Meanwhile, 200,000 troops had already stormed into the palace. Find them. I don't believe that with 200,000 troops. We can't find a few of those beasts from the dragon country. The newly appointed emperor, Darong, drew his katana with satisfaction. He didn't follow the main force to search for the assassins. Instead, he went directly into the emperor's harem. There were many things he had wanted to do before, but didn't dare to. Now, having inherited the throne, he could do so openly. Several subordinates had all the beauties stand in the square. Strip, I'm throwing a party today. On the other side, a Yuri replica said to Su Bai, the palace area has been rescanned. Su Bai nodded. Using the mine detector to scan the area was indeed convenient. Now, it was time to use the super weapon he had seen in the Stone Sea. That is, the final attack weapon of the troops. The nuclear missile launch silo. The nuclear missile is ready. Su Bai went alone to the top of the city government building and raised his middle finger towards the west. A giant missile was launched from the Stone Sea. Warning, nuclear missile launched. Over at the palace, Emperor Darong's air defense forces detected incoming aerial threats from afar again. The air raid alarm sounded. The newly appointed cabinet minister, Prime Minister Koizumi Ichiro, walked over to Darong, who was enjoying the party. Your Majesty, another air raid is coming. Shouldn't we take cover? At that moment, Darong was still in high spirits. Get lost. Don't ruin my fun. He kicked Koizumi Ichiro hard, sending him sprawling. He continued with his celebratory movements. Suddenly, a blinding light streaked across the sky, like a meteor cutting through the heavens, but the fiery trail carried the omen of destruction. The palace's air defense forces hadn't even reacted when a deafening explosion erupted, shaking the entire palace. The nuclear missile descended like a colossal deity from the sky, carrying unmatched power as it struck the center of the palace with immense force. In that instant, a mushroom cloud soared into the sky, illuminating the entire expanse above. Flames raged, consuming every brick and tile of the palace. The shockwave generated by the explosion flattened surrounding buildings instantly. Even the sturdy city walls crumbled before this overwhelming force. The emperor watched as the massive shockwave approached, with no time to escape. Along with another consort at his waist, he was instantly disintegrated by the force, leaving only 2 white skeletal remains standing in place. Chapter 156. The Kusanagi sword and the 8 pairs of jewels, various divine artifacts generously bestowed by the emperor, have left behind an embarrassing legacy for future generations. Simultaneously, 200,000 troops were decimated by the shockwave from the nuclear explosion. With only a fraction crawling out from the rubble, they could only consider themselves extremely fortunate, as the undead forces had protected them, barely escaping with their lives. However, the joy of survival was short-lived. The powerful nuclear radiation began to ravage every commander. While the undead forces were immune to the damage caused by the radiation, their commanders were still mortal beings, entirely susceptible to this green menace. One could see the skin of each individual slowly necrotizing and falling away, revealing blackened, purplish bones, accompanied by streams of blood flowing down, ultimately dissolving into a pool of green water, disappearing from existence. Subai monitored all of this through his mental detector, remarking that the power was simply overwhelming. Compared to the destruction caused by lightning storms on buildings, the nuclear explosion might be slightly less effective. However, in terms of lethality to personnel, the nuclear weapon was far more dangerous and terrifying. Unfortunately, the cooldown time for such a superweapon was too long, and each faction could only establish one. Otherwise, Subai could hardly imagine having such extraordinary power, freely deploying nuclear weapons worldwide. At this moment, Su Xiaoya sent a message. What happened up there? Was it like an earthquake? Stay down there and don't come out. The surface is now covered with deadly toxins, and 200,000 soldiers of the Empire have been turned to dust. Upon hearing this news, Chen Xiao and Wang Xiaohu were left dumbfounded, shocked into silence, unable to move for a long time. How could this be possible? 200,000 troops, elite guards of the Emperor, even in a confrontation where the enemy is surrounded. Annihilating such a massive force would cost at least several thousand lives on their side. How could they all be wiped out so suddenly? In an instant, the 3 felt an impulse to rush back to the surface to see if what Subai said was true. However, the mention of lethal poison by Subai made the 3 of them abandon that idea. After some discussion, they decided that since they couldn't leave, they would first interrogate the Emperor. Boris took out a bottle of vodka, forced the Emperor's mouth open, and poured half a bottle into it. The Emperor, already terrified to the point of shaking, was slightly revived by the strong liquor. Please spare me, great warriors of the Dragon Kingdom. As long as you let me go, I can agree to anything. Boris, holding the live-streaming equipment, faced Subai. At the same time, Subai finally communicated with the Emperor for the first time. You must be Subai. I am your old friend. My son participated in your competition before and was honored to be tested by you. Just let me go, and I can give you any amount of money. I want all your gold and gems. Subai replied calmly. Suddenly, the Emperor found himself in a dilemma. Previously, a certain leader had called him, saying that the gold treasures were not safe near the Dragon Kingdom and would be better transported back to the global financial center. That was the safest place. Faced with the threat, the Emperor had no choice but to agree. Now, he timidly asked, do you want US dollars? 20 minutes later, the Emperor's full set of platinum dentures was pried out. He then obediently took out a few treasures from the vault. Subai, this is our family's heirloom from the Sakura Kingdom. The Emperor introduced each item. This sword is the sacred relic, Kusanagi no Tsurugi, the divine weapon that slayed the ancient beast Yamada no Orochi. He pointed to another sword and said, this sword is called the Ama no Murakumo no Tsurugi, also a sacred relic, left behind by Yamada no Orochi as well. The attributes of these 2 swords were remarkable, making Chen Xiao and Wang Xianghu drool. Subai smiled. You 2 can keep these swords as trophies. Hearing that Subai was giving the swords to them, the 2 were almost bursting with excitement. Such a sacred relic among sacred relics. Subai was so generous. It should be noted that these 2 swords could reach an attack attribute of up to 450 points. Not to mention the additional poison damage. With these swords, one could clear high-level dungeons without summoning any troops. They were the national treasures of the Sakura Kingdom. Su Bai? How can we repay you? Wang Xiaohu's words were interrupted by Su Bai. For Su Bai, the artifacts in this world were no match for his own light prism tank. They didn't catch his eye at all. Then, the emperor continued to introduce, this crescent-shaped jade is called the Yada no Kagami. It adds courage, strength, compassion, wisdom, and various powers. The emperor then displayed the attributes of this item. 8-span Xiong Go Jade, relic, accessory, necklace, power, 100, agility, 100, defense, 100, health, 1000, special skill, radiant revival, skill description. Radiant revival releases a burst of intense white light, temporarily blinding enemies for 5 minutes. Cooldown time, 1 hour. Allied units in the light will also be blinded. This skill seems a bit useless. Su Bai rubbed his chin. If his army was blinded, that would be a real problem. Suddenly, he remembered what Su Xiaoya had told him last time. His dragon warrior had a pair of membrane-like eyelids that could immunize against blindness effects. Wasn't this equipment tailor-made for Su Xiaoya? So, Su Bai had Su Xiaoya put on this equipment. At first, Su Xiaoya hesitated, but after Su Bai explained the reason, Chen Xiao and Wang Xiaohu also nodded in agreement. Only then did Su Xiaoya accept it. Heroes, I believe everyone has gained something, so please spare this old man, Chen Xiao said disdainfully. You can deceive others. But trying to fool me, the information officer, seems a bit too much. Boris noticed the problem and kicked the emperor in the chest. The emperor spat out a mouthful of old blood. Only then did Chen Xiao say, "Where's the 8-span mirror? Others may not know, but I do." Wang Xiaohu was shocked. This old turtle actually had a hidden card. Don't you dare play tricks in front of me. Believe it or not. You'll end up like a rat caught in a trap. He slapped him twice. The emperor was beaten senseless, realizing he couldn't hide anything. He opened the secret door of the hidden chamber. It turned out this treasure house had more to it. After entering another secret door, they found a large shrine inside. The shrine housed 2 statues. Chen Xiao said, these 2 should be the ancestral gods worshipped in the land of cherry blossoms, Izanami and Izanaji. Legend has it that they are siblings who created humanity, and thus the race of the land of cherry blossoms was born. Wang Xiaohu couldn't help but express his disdain. No wonder they say their lives are twisted. It turns out it's rooted in their origins. Su Bai felt the same way. The emperor carefully handed over the 8-span mirror. Upon seeing the attributes, everyone was instantly shocked. Chapter 157. The dragon vein of the cherry blossom nation is shattered, erased from Blue Star from now on. Yada mirror, super artifact, holy relic, treasure of the Amaterasu clan, one-time item. Make a wish in front of the mirror. You may retrieve what you desire from it. This seems a bit too abstract, being able to take out what one wants. Wang Xiaohu said excitedly, I want more money. Chen Xiao rolled his eyes at him. Such a wish is too unambitious. Just give Su Bai a bank account number, and he'll send you hundreds of millions in dollars. Wang Xiaohu calmed down. Indeed, with the holy relic in hand and a formidable reputation, he was among the best in the Dragon Nation regarding merits and martial prowess. What other wishes could he possibly have? Chen Xiao suggested, why not wish for the Dragon Nation to rule the world? Su Xiaoya quickly intervened. Such a wish is too abstract. The Yada mirror probably can't fulfill it. Wang Xiaohu hurriedly asked why. Chen Xiao understood in an instant. If such a wish could be granted, the Emperor wouldn't have kept this mirror until now. The 3 of them discussed and decided to hand over this treasure to Su Bai for handling. This guy is quirky and always comes up with new tricks. Boris, destroy these 2 statues for me. In the video, Su Bai issued a new command. He had long found these 2 statues displeasing. Boris pulled back the gun bolt, aiming at the statue, ready to fire. The Emperor immediately stopped him. Hero, you can't do that. These 2 statues are the source of the dragon vein of the Cherry Blossom Nation. Destroying the statues would be equivalent to ruining the Emperor's lineage's fortune, plunging the entire Cherry Blossom Nation into unpredictable misfortune. As he spoke, Fang Lang knelt down, repeatedly bowing to everyone. Su Bai smiled. Since it's such an important thing, it should definitely be destroyed. Get to it. Rat-a-tat-tat. The AKM continued to fire, and the stone statues began to shatter. Dust mixed with debris kept falling. Amid the Emperor's cries, the 2 statues were reduced to rubble. The Emperor couldn't catch his breath and fainted. At this moment, Boris inspected the statues and surprisingly found 2 Inyang Jades inside. Inyang Jade, holy relic. Inyang Jade birthed by Izanami and Izanaji, one-time item. Upon use, consumes 1,000 years of fortune from the Cherry Blossom Nation. Enhancing hero attributes. Note, this item is only for use by dual hero commanders, and the heroes must be 1 Yin and 1 Yang. Chen Xiao adjusted his glasses. Isn't this thing meant for your dual heroes? Use it quickly. Su Bai nodded. Boris was preparing to crush the prop. At that moment, the unconscious Emperor suddenly transformed and lunged forward, shouting, you can't use it. If you use it, the cherry blossoms will be over. Another strike with the butt of a gun followed. The Emperor fell into a baby-like sleep. Boris activated the prop. In the next second, Tanya, who was guarding Subai, radiated a faint blue glow. At the same time, Boris in the scene emitted a bright red light. The two colors, red and blue, were like water and fire, completely incompatible. Even more astonishing, beneath their feet, two flag symbols representing their respective factions emerged. Wherever they went, the symbols moved with them, creating an aura of mystery reminiscent of the legendary Guanyin, who walked on lotus flowers. Looking at Tanya's attributes, there was an additional title after her name, Goddess of Victory. With this title, heroes leading allied troops in battle will grant the entire army a direct effect, enhancing overall troop agility by 30. This meant that heroes commanding troops could actually gain a buff. Subai immediately checked Boris's attributes, and indeed, he also obtained a title, Fearless Warrior. With this title, heroes leading the troops will grant the entire army an indomitable effect, enhancing overall troop strength by 30. Chen Xiao also noticed the enhanced attributes, and his glasses nearly fell off in shock. It was indeed a powerful item with 1,000 years of luck after its destruction. This power transferred to the hero, proving to be incredibly strong. Moreover, compared to Wang Xiaohu and Su Xiaoya, who only felt that Su Bai's hero had become stronger, Chen Xiao understood more. His brows furrowed. Through Boris before him, he could deduce that Su Bai had another set of troop types. Su Bai actually had dual troop awakenings, and they were from different human factions. Such a talent likely existed only in the entire world. Thinking of this, he threw his head back and laughed. No wonder Su Bai could conquer the influential nation. It wasn't just due to his confidence, but because he truly had the strength. After collecting these treasures, Boris splashed cold water on the emperor and woke him up. They found a secret passage and arrived outside the city, where there was no radiation. Su Xiaoya led everyone back to Su Bai's aircraft carrier. At last, their operations in the Cherry Blossom country had come to an end. Before the three could catch their breath, a tremendous sound erupted from the main island of the Cherry Blossom country. Through the binoculars, they saw Mount Fuji erupting with scorching lava, the fiery magma flowing rapidly down the slope like a roaring fire dragon. The city beneath the volcano was instantly engulfed in flames, the blaze lighting up the sky. Buildings were reduced to ashes under the burning lava, and the air was filled with the smell of charred remains. People fled in terror, but the flames spread rapidly and could not be stopped. The entire city was reduced to ruins under the onslaught of lava, leaving only hot embers and endless wails of despair. Wang Xiaohu, in fear, exclaimed, "Is this the consequence of the broken dragon vein?" Then he changed his expression and smiled, saying, "That's amazing." Immediately after, a tsunami towering several meters high surged towards the coastline like a giant wall, instantly engulfing the coastal cities of the island nation. The monstrous waves roared, sweeping everything away. Houses, streets, trees were submerged in an instant. People screamed and scattered in panic, but the force of the waves was unstoppable. The entire city trembled under the impact of the tsunami, plunging into chaos. Not only that, a massive earthquake struck fiercely like a beast, causing the buildings to shake violently. High-rise buildings collapsed with a thunderous roar, dust flying and debris scattering everywhere. Streets cracked, bridges fell, and the once thriving area was turned into a wasteland. In panic, people screamed and fled in search of safe shelter. The volcano, earthquake, and tsunami mercilessly devastated the island nation. One of the tectonic plates shattered, separating from the main island and tilting along the ocean current, eventually colliding with the neighboring country. A coastal city in that country suffered tens of thousands of casualties. The authorities immediately declared that this piece of land belonged to that country. The imperial soldiers stationed on the island refused to surrender. The two nations clashed again, resulting in casualties of around 60 to 70,000. Of course, that is another story. The emperor was taken to a distant nation. Su Bai publicly executed the emperor in front of the whole world via live broadcast. This event caused an uproar far exceeding the incident of the dragon veins fracture. Chapter 158, Military Action, A Hollywood Dream. Location, Los Angeles. KB Elements. People from the Dragon Nation are terrorists. Su Bai is a demon. He even killed the emperor of the island nation. I suggest the world organize another coalition to take down Su Bai. This news was broadcasted globally. Many conservative forces in various countries called on their governments to form a coalition army to eliminate the world's #1 demon, Su Bai. A dignified monarch, brought down to his knees, executed by a mere 50 brother. What humiliation. It is truly disgraceful. Especially the leaders of the distant nation called on countries around the world to unite against Su Bai. However, there were few responses. After all, if even that distant nation couldn't handle him, how could other countries come to help? It would be like the story of a child rescuing his grandfather, one by one. So, the higher-ups remained silent. Of course, aside from the people from the Dragon Nation, there were others who applauded. These were the various countries in Asia that had been invaded by the island nation in the past. On the day of the emperor's execution, They set off firecrackers and decorated their homes, celebrating as if it were a grand festival. Well done, Dragon Nation. Finally, the war criminal leader has been executed. Subai. Oh my goodness, I've already fallen in love with him. Dressed in a marshal's robe, he is simply the most beautiful figure in my heart. Alas, my life is so bitter. Why was I born in this country? If I were in the Dragon Nation, perhaps I would have the chance to be with Subai. Subai's transcendent image has already become a heroic presence among the people of the region. Only those countries that have not suffered the pains of the Cherry Blossom Nation shamelessly claim that Subai should be executed. Of course, Subai never takes these praises or rumors to heart. After the transmission by the time-traveling soldiers, the Yada mirror was sent to his side. Subai looked at the mirror and muttered to himself, to fulfill a wish? Without hesitation, he immediately made a wish. I want my system to upgrade to the Red Alert 3 system. Then, he reached out to touch the mirror. No response. Could it be that this wish is too unrealistic? So he made another wish. Give me a base vehicle from the Rising Sun Empire. Again, he touched the mirror. But still no reaction. Subai propped his chin and began to think. It seemed that the wishes he made were not things that existed in this world. Which is why the Yada mirror did not respond. With this in mind, he thought of something else. Legends say that strong individuals can summon 1,000,000 troops. However, in reality, the strongest can only summon a few thousand soldiers. So, is the ability to summon 1,000,000 troops just an ordinary legend? He said to the Yada mirror, I am currently only level 50 with a total military strength of 2,500. It's still too little. Is there any way to increase my military strength? This time, the mirror's surface rippled as if affected by a disturbance, creating circles of waves. Then, a beam of light gradually expanded, scattering and dazzling Subai's eyes. When the light faded, an item appeared before him. Platinum Tiger Talisman, one-time item. After use, you will gain the title of Platinum War King. And the number of troops you can carry will increase tenfold. Supreme item. Upon seeing this item, Subai's breath became uneven. In another location, the president's office received a report. Mr. President, Subai has stationed over 1,000 troops in San Francisco and then led the remaining forces to Los Angeles. The defense minister reported. Los Angeles? Why is he going to Los Angeles? According to our analysis, Subai is an extremely greedy person who loves gold, jewels, and precious metals. He is likely heading to Los Angeles to capture Hollywood stars living there for ransom. How prepared is our army? When can we annihilate the enemy? Asked the leader. Our 3 strongest warriors have already been dispatched. I believe they will soon defeat Subai. 3 strongest warriors? The leader had only a partial understanding. In his impression, it seemed that no commander could single-handedly defeat Subai. The Minister of Defense added that these 3 individuals had entered the battlefield of all realms a few years ago and had only recently earned enough points to return here. He had indeed heard of the battlefield of all realms, where the will of the Blue Star selects the strongest individuals to participate in a war against humans from parallel worlds or other races from various realms, competing for supremacy. Of course, being the strongest ISNTA requirement, as long as one survives, they can accumulate points over time and return to reality once their points meet the requirements. Regardless, entering that place is a matter of life and death, far more difficult than the previously opened outer world. Who are these 3 individuals? The King of the West, John Marston, the King of Battlefield, Rambo, and the King of Machines, the Terminator. Upon hearing their names, the leader nearly dropped his drink. These names were well known. The King of the West, John Marston, commanded the strongest cavalry on the Blue Star. With his steed capable of traveling 800 miles at night and 1,000 miles during the day, boasting exceptional mobility, earning him the title of the Wild West Maverick. The King of Battlefield, Rambo, possessed the strongest covert operational experience, whether in jungles, deserts, or cities, executing hidden kills like a ghostly assassin, unmatched in the world. The King of Machines, the Terminator, commanded units made of pure steel, with dual immunity to physical and magical attacks, making him the strongest MT warrior on the Blue Star. The Minister of Defense turned around and reminded to get a signed business card from him. Even the president of a certain country wanted to ask these 3 for their cards. Having connections with them would ensure that he could serve as president for another 30 years without issue. Meanwhile, after expanding his forces tenfold, Subai, accompanied by 1,000 troops, marched south into Los Angeles. This city is the global center of film and television, home to countless male and female stars. Perfectly. These individuals could help Subai raise war funds. Yuri's base vehicle was deployed, and barracks were constructed, along with troop recovery stations. One by one, Yuri clones emerged from the barracks to assist in mobilizing troops for raids. Indeed, Subai had made the right bet this time. Although San Francisco is a massive city, the truly wealthy predominantly reside in Los Angeles. Many film stars were mind-controlled and had their fortunes drained. Among them, a member of the Los Angeles team, known as the Black Mamba, also yielded a significant amount of gold coins. After a week of searches, Subai seized 800,000 resource points. This is a substantial figure. It takes several grams of gold to mint a single gold coin, and the system recovers resources based on the number of coins. The value of these coins, based on current market rates, is worth at least several billion. Now, the funding issue was completely resolved. Subai began researching some new creations: Beastmen, manufacturing; remote-controlled tank, manufacture; virus sniper, manufacture. Chapter 159. The three strongest warriors from Blue Star challenge Subai. Are they really experts? Outside the city of Los Angeles. Help. My body is about to collapse. John Marston ordered his Wild West mercenary group to halt. He saw several reconnaissance cavalrymen who had ventured ahead turn into a pool of green water due to the radiation from the radiation engineers. The reconnaissance cavalrymen were ambushed by the enemy, and it seemed that the green land ahead was all tainted by toxins. Biological units would undoubtedly perish if they went there. Beside him, the Terminator laughed. It seems that this Subai indeed has some skills. The Terminator Legion is mobilizing. Waves of steel skeleton warriors stepped into the green hell set up by Subai outside the city. These emotionless steel skeletons ignored the radiation released by the radiation engineers. They marched steadily toward the radiation engineers. Some radiation units immediately recovered from their deployed state and shot out beams of radioactive rays. Unfortunately, it was of no use. Warning. Warning. Your troops are under attack. Subai immediately opened the radar map to check. Outside the city, 3 individuals summoned large forces, apparently intending to attack here. Subai clicked his tongue. This was simply a case of trying to hit a stone with an egg. If hundreds of thousands of troops couldn't inflict any damage on him, what courage did these 3 have to resist? It couldn't be because of some encouragement from a certain singer, could it? Upon reaching the city wall, he indeed saw 3 individuals commanding their vast armies, standing tall and looking very confident. At that moment, one muscular man shot an arrow at Subai, quick as a flash. Subai drew the dragon-slaying blade and knocked it away. The man said, "You must be Subai. You do have some skills. Who are you?" "I am Rambo, a super soldier retired from the battlefield of the multiverse. If you surrender now, I can still give you a complete corpse." Subai raised an eyebrow. This guy actually said what he was going to say. Since that's the case, he couldn't be lenient anymore. Fire at will. Although Los Angeles was not a large city, it had many wealthy residents. The city walls were still grand and imposing. Mobilize the infantry, snipers, and launch all artillery, including grizzly tanks, rhino tanks, and storm tanks. Foolish. Steel skeleton warriors. Let him see our strength. The Terminator immediately commanded his soldiers to shield against the artillery fire. Bullets rained down on the steel skeleton warriors, creating countless sparks. However, these attacks did not affect the advance of the enemy's units at all. The grizzly tank fired a shell, directly bombarding the enemy. The opponent drew circles with both hands, took a horse stance, and caught the shell barehanded. The shell's surface was at 1,000 degrees, turning the enemy's hands bright red. However, this did not hinder the enemy's advance at all. Subsequently, the enemy forcefully threw back the shells fired by the grizzly tank. The grizzly tank now had high defensive capabilities and even greater offensive power. Being hit by its own shells, it was reduced to mere scrap. Subai frowned, sensing that this enemy was indeed quite formidable and likely a skilled opponent. Meanwhile, the other 2 quickly left the battlefield and arrived at a location on both the north and south sides. They summoned their soldiers to attack the main city. Subai stationed his snipers and the Apocalypse tank on both sides for defense. On the northern side, the King of the West, John Marston, commanded his band of outlaws. Advancing like the wind, he easily eliminated dozens of mobilized troops and new recruits defending outside the city. At the same time, his own band of outlaws suffered no losses. Just then, a sniper ascended the city wall and began taking shots at the enemy. One shot fired, and it missed. After several more shots, there were still significant misses. John Marston laughed heartily. Indeed, these were just ordinary people who had trained on the Blue Planet, untested by the brutal realities of the multiverse battlefield, appearing like weaklings. If a troop lacks absolute evasion, their survival capacity on the battlefield is extremely low. My mobile forces, however, possess an exceptionally high evasion rate, no matter how high your attack power is. If you can't hit, it's utterly useless. Meanwhile, Subai continued to reinforce the tanks and soldiers holding the line at the city gates, but the snipers were proving ineffective, repeatedly missing against such agile enemies. Out of 10 shots, at most 2 would hit. The situation was not optimistic. If I sent radiation engineers to hold the line, the close distance would also endanger the infantry units on the city walls due to radiation. On the southern side, only the battlefield King Rambo stood at a distance, seemingly posing no threat. However, down below, Subai's soldiers continued to suffer casualties, with even the grizzly tank being attacked and smoking. All the soldiers were confused, unable to see the enemy at all. Where were these attacks coming from? Amid the cries of despair, brothers fell to the ground, shattered. Meanwhile, Rambo in the distance appeared relaxed, a smirk on his face, one eye bigger than the other, as if mocking Su-bai's foolishness. Surrounded on three sides, Su-bai could only keep producing troops to hold the line. Boris, who was in charge of command, rushed over. Commander, there's still one side of the enemy that hasn't been surrounded. Should we retreat to the headquarters in San Francisco? Su-bai pondered for 2 seconds and decisively rejected the proposal. Perhaps it was time to change the battle strategy. The enemy on the northern side was the band of outlaws, moving swiftly like the wind. If the snipers couldn't hit them, then it was time to switch to virus snipers. Once hit, they would infect each other. On the south side, there are invisible enemies, possibly using tricks to deceive. I don't believe their illusions can affect AI machines. The sniper on the north side immediately changed. The hunched-over man in a yellow outfit was replaced by a beautiful woman wielding dual sniper rifles, continuing to snipe at the enemy forces. Like the previous sniper, she could hit only 2 out of 10 shots, and while a sniper could take down an enemy with a single bullet, the virus sniper seemed to be less effective. In the distance, the Western King, John Marston, laughed. Indeed, the enemy had no usable troops left and had resorted to sending women into battle. To be fair, these women were quite stunning. It felt like a loss not to have taken a couple for some fun. He shouted loudly, "It's noon. Break through the enemy's walls. Charge into the city." The agile Wild West bandits no longer roamed aimlessly, killing Su-bai's infantry and tanks, but instead launched a collective charge like a wall of wind. At the same time, the enemy's collective charge increased Su-bai's hit rate. The virus snipers opened fire, and now the hit rate had noticeably improved by 20%. Each strong cavalryman emitted a massive burst of green toxic mist. This toxic cloud spread everywhere, and the nearby cavalrymen inhaled it, causing their physical condition to deteriorate. Their charge slowed significantly, and their health began to drop. As one enemy after another was shot down and turned into virus mist, the plague spread. The cavalrymen couldn't help but cough up blood, struggling to hold the reins. Their movements became sluggish. Chapter 160. What? The invincible Western King is being troubled by mere foot soldiers. Due to the overall slowdown, Su-bai's forces gained the upper hand, maintaining continuous fire. In an instant, over 100 enemy cavalrymen, along with their horses, were shot down. John Marston also identified the problem. That swirling green mist was toxic. Previously, the light cavalry unit he was in charge of scouting had fallen into an ambush by radiation engineers. He had already gained some understanding of Su-bai's use of poison. He didn't expect that this guy could not only poison the land, but could also shoot infectious viruses from his firearms. Now, the virus had spread, and his cavalry had no way to defend against it. Thus, gritting his teeth, he had no choice but to use a strategy to cut off the virus at its source. All Wild West bandits, activate the Eye of Death. After the command was given, all the cavalry's eyes gradually turned yellow, resembling the moonlight of a grim reaper. In their vision, all moving objects slowed down by 80%, and their reactions became incredibly swift. The reloading speed of their firearms increased, allowing each bullet to hit Su-bai's forces. In that instant, the troops unleashed a damage comparable to a metallic storm. Not only did basic mobilized soldiers suffer, but the grizzly tanks in the frontline defense were pierced by bullets and exploded. Even a section of the city wall collapsed as a result. The power was undeniably overwhelming. Skill unleashed, charge. They surged into the city. The cavalry flowed in through the breach. The King of the West felt a surge of joy in his heart. Victory was assured this time. He spurred his horse and charged in as well. Meanwhile, Su-bai received the news of the city's breach. Fortunately, he had set up several combat bunkers near the city wall, all manned by new recruits from Yuri's faction. Although they were new soldiers, their strength surpassed that of seasoned veterans. In an instant, the enemy cavalry pouring through the gap was met with the psychic flames unleashed by one of Yuri's new recruits. Despite being the most basic unit of Yuri's faction, these new recruits had the largest field of vision among all troop types. Their perception was exceptionally strong. Flames erupted on the enemies, igniting the outlaws. These psychic flames erupted through thought, leaving no trajectory or ballistic path. Thus, there was no chance of dodging or missing. Countless soldiers fell from their horses, desperately rolling on the ground in an attempt to extinguish the flames. Unfortunately, this was a superpower attack. The flames would not extinguish. Soldiers and horses alike collapsed to the ground, and those behind them stumbled over the bodies, causing many to fall as well. The entire breach turned into a mountain of corpses. The King of the West, who had charged in, quickly recognized the issue. Those special buildings were problematic. All focused fire on the buildings. He released his skill once more, Eye of Death. This time, he would no longer have the chance to activate it. Elite combat soldiers led their troops to strike from the side, continuously harvesting the fallen cavalry. Even John Marston's mount was shot in the head. The 2-ton super horse collapsed to the ground, and he was thrown off, nearly having his leg crushed. At that moment, He was no longer calm and composed. Panic filled him. He hadn't expected the enemy to have such a variety of troop types, and their attacks had no trajectory. He had been careless, truly careless this time. He thought that after training his soldiers in the battlefield of all realms to possess extraordinary strength and agility, he would return to this world to dominate. He never anticipated that there were troops who hadn't even been to that place that could unleash such high combat power. The best strategy was to retreat. He stood up and summoned his hero. Divine Eagle, save me. Suddenly, the world changed color. A giant bird spread its wings, covering the sunlight with its hundreds of meters wide wingspan. A massive eagle descended from the sky. Its talons swiftly grasped one of the combat bunkers, uprooting it and dragging it into the air. Then it released its grip. Inside, a rookie soldier screamed as he fell from the sky. The King of the West, now atop his heroic giant eagle, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Unbeknownst to him, he had become the only flying enemy on the battlefield, becoming the target of various air defense units. Anti-aircraft guns, multifunctional infantry vehicles, tracked air defense vehicles, heavily armed soldiers, airborne troops all launched a barrage against him. Thus, the powerful warrior returning from the battlefield was instantly obliterated by the attacks unleashed by all of Su Bai's air defense units. Officials and advisors in a certain government department watched in disbelief. How could this be? A highly agile unit was actually defeated? Moreover, the commander was an absolute powerhouse returning from the battlefield. Everyone was stunned for a moment until a maid brought a can of soda, prompting the advisor to regain composure. He instructed to notify the others to be cautious and not to be careless, as the enemy had set up numerous strongholds in the city. If necessary, they could encircle without attacking and eliminate them slowly. Yes, the communication device connected, and the images of the two warriors were transmitted live. They both appeared indifferent. One of them said, "It's normal for this guy to be dead. He was just a sidekick in the battlefield, a weak presence that anyone could bully. He only survived because he knew how to flatter the captain." The other added, "He might run fast, but when it comes to real battles, he lacks the ability. All he could do was help loot supplies and grab women for everyone to enjoy. His death is even better." Their remarks left the advisor feeling quite embarrassed. After all, these three were the greatest assets of their nation, the divine protectors of the realm. In truth, any one of them had the power to bring down nations. However, there could only be one strongest person in the world. Although the remaining two were allies, they were also rivals, each wanting the other to perish to claim the title of the strongest in the world and dominate their realm. The King of the West, John Marston, was dead, and secretly, both of them felt particularly pleased. Finally, one less competitor. As for Su Bai, they remained dismissive. In their eyes, this guy had a strong ability to summon troops, and his power was indeed impressive. He could likely stand alone on the battlefield. However, they were true warriors who had been forged in the fires of combat, possessing rich battle experience. This is not something that a newly risen young individual like Su Bai can compare to. At this moment, the Iron Skeleton warriors on the front line have already arrived at the city gates. No matter how fierce Su Bai's firepower is, it cannot stop the opponent's bulldozer-like assault. Thus, Su Bai waved his hand and activated the Undead Resurrection skill, bringing back 500 fallen Wild West gunslingers. These mounted warriors set off from the northern city wall and circled around to the back of the Devil Terminator, launching an unexpected surprise attack. Chapter 161. Sorry. I'm an emotionless AI, remote-controlled tanks breaking through the enemy's confusion formation. Su Bai's sudden ambush surprised the Devil Terminator, who quickly redirected some of his troops from the front line to reinforce the defense. At the same time, he unleashed his hero, the Liquid Metal Warrior T-2000. This hero is made of liquid metal, capable of transforming into any cold weapon and ruthlessly slaughtering enemies. Most importantly, he possesses unlimited resurrection ability, healing at a speed of 5 per second regardless of how severe the injuries are. He can be considered invincible among the invincible, the most formidable presence among the heroes of Blue Star. With the addition of the undead army on the front line, the pressure was significantly reduced. Now, Su Bai could focus on dealing with the enemy on the southern front, where he was currently in a defensive position. The battlefield appeared empty, yet his troops continued to lose health without any apparent reason. Looking at the radar, Su Bai couldn't help but ponder. Could the opponent be using some magical means? Consequently, 50 flying soldiers quickly took off and reached above Lumbo, concentrating their fire on him. Having disengaged from the battlefield, Lumbo looked at the approaching enemies with disdain. He raised the Flame of Fury crossbow, which he had exchanged for points from the infinite battlefield. Whoosh, several rockets were launched, releasing explosive flames in the sky like high-level magic that didn't require a mage's incantation. The speed and accuracy were both impressive. The flying soldiers dodged hurriedly, but still, a few were shot down. Su Bai stroked his chin. This guy's weapon is quite strong. It seems he needs to be dealt with more forcefully. Su Bai pointed towards the Stone Sea, where Black Hawk fighter jets took off, dropping 8 air bombs. This speed was something even Lumbo couldn't defend against. After the explosion, he was covered in injuries, bleeding profusely. Subai smiled. Even if your attacks are strange, you cannot withstand the air bombs from the Black Hawk jets. Unless you can maneuver like the special moves of 08 Blue Sky or Dragon. Lumbo, if you can't hold on, retreat. You are the pride of our nation. There's no need to clash directly with Subai, the King of Understanding said, while watching the live broadcast with concern. No need. Subai does have strength. But I'm not a pushover either. Just prepare the wealth, beauty, money, and status I want, and the rest is not for you to talk about. The King of Understanding was momentarily taken aback, his face turning a bit red, but he didn't dare to retaliate. He could only pretend he didn't hear. These people returning from the battlefield of myriad realms are really too unruly. I'm still a president of a nation, and they speak so disrespectfully. However, such thoughts could only remain in his mind. In front of the powerful individuals returning from that battlefield, the King of Understanding could only smile and nod. Earth escape. Stealth technique. Subai's Black Hawk fighter jet took off again. But this time, it couldn't find the opponent's target. It seemed to have disappeared outside the city. However, his troops were still suffering from invisible attacks. Subai sent 50 to 60 police dogs charging forward. If the enemy's troops were invisible, these keen-sense dogs would be able to sniff them out. But these dogs seemed to be acting dumb, staying in place and allowing the invisible attacks to tear them apart. Rambo, hiding in a hole, watched as Subai's dogs were slaughtered by his own soldiers and couldn't help but chuckle. If I didn't have some means, I would have died long ago on the battlefield of myriad realms. How could I return? All troops, continue to maintain stealth and kill status. Subai was also startled. Could it be that the enemy's attacks were not invisible, but rather an illusion? If that's the case, Subai sent out the newly produced remote-controlled tanks to investigate. The remote-controlled tanks were controlled by the Allied Construction Control Center, equipped with many large computing servers. All tanks were controlled by artificial intelligence, requiring no manual operation. 20 remote-controlled tanks received Subai's command and charged out from both sides. More scrap metal came out. This person's troops have quite high defense. Attack those scrap metals, Rambo ordered. But this time, he miscalculated. The illusion created by the biological troops was completely ineffective against the AI-controlled remote-controlled tanks. Boom, boom, boom. A series of cannon fires erupted. Shells stirred up the dirt on the ground. The enemy soldiers, who had been elusive, were finally blown into the air by the shells. They turned out to be strange monsters resembling foxes, their bodies a mix of yellow and gray. These monsters wielded large knives and forks. Hoodie. A special troop type nurtured by Rambo, belongs to the telekinesis category. They can release psychic illusions, making it impossible for the enemy to perceive their existence, and then quietly approach to attack. They can be said to be masters of stealth. However, there is a significant drawback. This troop type heavily relies on telekinetic power, and if their strength is insufficient, the damage caused is not significant. This is why the commander did not rush to send his troops into the city. He is playing a slow game of attrition, ultimately exhausting the enemy before delivering a decisive blow. However, he miscalculated. The remote-controlled tanks operated by Subai are not susceptible to such tactics. With full AI control, they are immune to the psychic control used by Yuri. These tanks not only move while firing shells, but although the damage from their small-caliber dual-barrel guns is low, they are more than capable of dealing with these lower-defense psychic units. The 3 jet engines allow the tanks to hover above the ground, ensuring they maintain a very high speed. As the tanks move and fire, they charge forward, instantly crushing many enemy soldiers. The commander is taken aback. His covert tactics have been unraveled by the opponent. What on earth are those floating metal objects? He is bewildered, but at this moment, having used a healing potion exchanged from the battlefield points, his body has fully recovered. He has no choice but to reveal himself and draw his Flame of Fury crossbow, unleashing merciless explosive flames at the remote-controlled tanks. In an instant, several fragile tanks are destroyed. He laughs heartily, convinced that once he wipes out these reconnaissance units, victory in this war will still belong to him. Boom. Several rockets are fired, and 3 more remote-controlled tanks are blown up. Subai, watching from a distance, can't help but smirk. He remarks, although your troops prefer to hide, deep down you still want to see yourself as a courageous warrior charging into battle. Since that's the case, let me fulfill your wish. As the enemy commander reveals himself, Subai wastes no time. With the interference from the enemy units gone, the Rhino tanks advance, their firepower aimed at the commander. Unexpectedly, this guy is quite agile. While constantly dodging and rolling, he wields the explosive crossbow and manages to take down a few of Subai's Rhino tanks, prompting Subai to admire his prowess. What a fierce warrior. But what is his name? All troops, listen up. Capture alive, do not fire. Chapter 162. Since you are so brave, let me see. The brain-controlled Yuri clones are only here to capture the commander. The SEAL team shouts loudly, your strength is impressive, Our commander holds you in high regard. May I ask your name? Covered in blood, the furious commander leaps and stands atop a burning rhino tank, laughing maniacally. I am the king of the jungle, known as First Blood in the battlefield of the worlds, Rambo. Subai is also someone who values talent. It would be a pity not to utilize such a fierce warrior. 20 rhino tanks formed a circle to protect the 5 mind control vehicles that were penetrating the enemy lines. Subai originally didn't intend to produce these mind control vehicles, as the current situation involved large-scale battles. Controlling so many targets with brain vehicles would likely lead to immediate destruction. However, in order to capture a formidable opponent, Subai made the tough decision to manufacture them. In an instant, the enemies surrounding them were under the control of the mind control vehicles, leading to infighting among them. The remote-controlled tanks that had already been dealt with made Lan Bo feel that the initiative on the battlefield had returned to his hands. To his surprise, the opposing side also had a telekinetic unit, and the psychic energy they released far exceeded his expectations. A sense of foreboding surged in his mind, and his sixth sense warned him that real danger was approaching. He activated his communication device. Mr. President, the situation here is dire. When will the million-strong army arrive? In the communicator, the president was fully equipped, wearing the uniform of a marshal. He had even struck a classic pose reminiscent of historical figures in various media. Hold on. In just a few hours, I will lead the charge myself. Subai had only a few thousand troops, while the million-strong army was on its way. He would undoubtedly be reduced to nothing, defeated completely. Damn it. At such a critical moment, the president was still putting on a show for votes. Now, he could only use his last resort. He rubbed an amber ring on his right hand and shouted, "Relic, activate." In the next second, the pockmarked ground suddenly sprouted towering trees, transforming the entire terrain into a mysterious and unpredictable primeval jungle. Years ago, when the forces from a certain country attacked another, Lan Bo's squad was completely annihilated, with only one person surviving by chance. Since then, facing the overwhelming siege of tens of thousands of enemies, he managed to endure for 2 years within the jungle, ultimately forcing the main forces of the opposing side to retreat before he returned home and continued to hone his skills on the battlefield. It could be said that other than Subai being able to draw his second drop of blood, it was already remarkable for anyone else to draw his first drop. The advancing mind control vehicles immediately came to a halt. The jungle was too dense for the vehicles to navigate. The rhino tanks began bombarding the jungle to clear a path. Lan Bo hid in a secure spot within the jungle, drawing his bow and aiming. He swiftly shot a bursting arrow. The brain vehicles, which had already been forcibly controlling many soldiers, were overwhelmed. When struck by the bursting arrow, they immediately began to smoke. They were too fragile to withstand such an attack. Lan Bo drew another arrow, determined to take down one of the brain vehicles. Unfortunately, this plan fell through as Subai waved his hand. 50 multifunctional infantry vehicles loaded with their respective engineers began to repair the damaged brain vehicles. In an instant, many of the previously brain-damaged vehicles regained their vitality. Meanwhile, the enemy soldiers that were previously under control entered the troop recovery station and were converted into resources. Lan Bo nearly spat out blood. Damn it, a mage and 5 healers responsible for healing. How are we supposed to fight? Now we can't let some soldiers still under the illusion actively attack the brain vehicles. That would basically be a death sentence. Realizing this, the only option now was to retreat. We can talk about it later. The flying troops conducting reconnaissance in the sky noticed movement in the jungle, with trees swaying. They immediately reported it to Subai. A smirk appeared on Subai's face. The path through the jungle was difficult to traverse. Originally, Subai would have let the V-3 missile vehicles slowly bombard the area to clear a path. However, now that he had upgraded to the Yuri's Revenge expansion, it was no longer necessary to go through all that trouble. Come forth. Battle Fortress. A massive metal mobile fortress emerged from Subai's stone sea. This structure was boxy, with several gun turrets on each side, and it could carry 5 infantry units. These units could attack the enemy through designated firing ports in a safer manner. Of course, that was secondary. The main point was that this fortress was enormous, more than enough to crush the jungle generated by the relics. 5 Yuri clones entered it, and the powerful engine roared to life, instantly overpowering swathes of trees as it plunged into the jungle. The noise it generated was immense. Lan Bo, fleeing in the jungle, was drenched in sweat from fear. He scrambled through the underbrush desperately. The flying troops continued to observe. This guy was indeed born for jungle warfare. In such a complex and rugged terrain, he moved as if it were flat ground. Unfortunately, no matter how agile he was, he couldn't match the speed of the battle fortress. The fortress bulldozed through everything in its path, crushing towering trees and rare plants to dust. As Lan Bo was fleeing at high speed, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. He then became numb all over, standing frozen in place. Subai was overjoyed. He had finally captured this fierce general alive. The Yuri clones had succeeded. But just then, a sudden change occurred. The controlled Lon Bo clutched his head in agony, as if the mind control of the Yuri clones was ineffective against him. Suddenly, a powerful will overcame the mind control, and he leaped onto the battle fortress. With a heavy punch, he struck the battle fortress, seemingly trying to clear his mind. 5 clones descended from the fortress, each rubbing their bald heads as they exerted mental control over him. Meanwhile, he bit off a piece of flesh from his own arm, forcing pain to take over his brain. His rationality returned. A group of detestable psychic soldiers. Fortunately, he was also a psychic soldier and knew the weaknesses of their attacks. He charged at one of the clones and executed a formal military punch, aiming directly at the clone's face. However, he was still careless. Although the clones had no offensive means, they were adept at controlling psychic powers. A mental shockwave. A powerful shockwave radiated from one of them, sending him flying several meters. At the same time, another clone behind him unleashed a mental shockwave. Under the rebound effect, he was tossed around like a ping-pong ball between the 5 clones until he was knocked unconscious. Chapter 163. The founder of Yuri Nation, Yuri X, emerges mysterious and evil. When he regained consciousness, he found himself bound and brought before Subai. I didn't expect to fall into your hands, I concede. No big deal. You are quite strong. Also, can you join my camp? You want to recruit me? Exactly. He rolled his eyes, thinking it might be better to feign agreement for now. Perhaps helping Subai attack the Devil Terminator and then seizing the opportunity to escape. With his own strength, escaping shouldn't be a problem. Since you don't intend to kill me, I am willing to serve you. Subai nodded in satisfaction. Can you help me get untied? Wait, I have one more question. This was a question that had troubled Subai for a long time. If he couldn't clarify it, he probably wouldn't sleep well that night. Go ahead. Why are you immune to the mental control of my Yuri clones? This was indeed a question. He smiled. It's because of my experience. Ever since I entered the battlefield of worlds, my own strength has continuously increased. I also have considerable magical resistance. He pointed to the belt at his waist. This belt buckle is a magical shield talisman exchanged with points in the battlefield of worlds. It can make me immune to any negative buffs or damage from physical attacks for 40 seconds, activating every 10 minutes. No wonder this guy was immune to his control. He then added, even without this magical shield, I can still counter your soldiers' psychic attacks. After all, I am constantly around psychic soldiers, so I naturally have resistance. Now, can you help me get untied? Subai didn't waste any words and went up to punch Lon Bo, leaving him somewhat dazed. Then, he yanked the magic amulet from Lon Bo's waist. With blood dripping from his nose, Lon Bo, looking distressed, asked, Didn't you say you wanted to recruit me? Why did you hit me? Subai smirked slightly. Because I don't trust your loyalty, you're not my comrade yet. Outside the office, a familiar deep voice echoed. Honorable Commander, the replicants have only cloned part of my cells. They can't compare to me. There's only one true Yuri. The speaker was Yuri X, the founder of the Yuri faction. When Lon Bo saw Yuri X enter, his previously indifferent expression changed immediately. Since he trained with the psychokinetic soldiers every day, he naturally possessed a strong sixth sense, allowing him to sense danger in advance. This had saved him multiple times. However, now that this person had entered, the brainwaves in the entire room seemed to become chaotic. While ordinary people might not feel it, Lon Bo could clearly sense it. The overwhelming pressure from Yuri X's psychokinesis made his eyelids twitch uncontrollably. Yuri X elegantly approached Lon Bo. Subai asked, Will he listen to you? He shall serve me well, Yuri X replied. In the next moment, he extended his left hand to touch Lon Bo's forehead. Lon Bo's terrified eyes calmed down, no longer showing any signs of trembling fear. He appeared as tranquil as a monk in meditation. You see, my dearest commander, he can now completely follow your orders and become our true comrade, Yuri X said. Subai nodded in satisfaction. It turned out that the mental power of the Yuri replicants was not as strong as the original Yuris, which was why they couldn't be controlled. The 2 Yuri XS produced by the cloning center were relatively inexpensive. Now, Subai had gathered all the heroes from the 3 factions. Just by controlling the powerful beings returning from the battlefield of myriad worlds, the investment was worth it. According to tradition, the victor had the right to loot the spoils. Lon Bo voluntarily removed all his equipment. He had a powerful Flame Fury explosive crossbow, dealing 500 damage. With an explosion effect that had a 5-meter radius upon hitting a target, adding 80 points of fixed damage and featuring infinite arrows. It was indeed a good piece of equipment, though Subai had no use for it. Next, he searched through Lon Bo's belongings, but found nothing else except for the previous belt buckle. This was somewhat puzzling. Subai glanced at Yuri X. Lon Bo then spoke up. After my equipment entered the battlefield of various realms, it could attach itself invisibly to my body using points, so it remains hidden. This has an advantage. At least others from different factions won't see that I have valuable equipment on me, which prevents them from targeting me to kill and steal. I see. Then take out the equipment inside your body. Lambwa shook his head. It can't be done once the equipment is fused. It can only be covered by new equipment, and the old attributes cannot be extracted. When the new equipment covers it, the old equipment automatically disappears. What? I spent so much money, and this guy's stuff can't be removed. After going in circles, I ended up with a spatial ring. Inside, there were some powerful healing potions exchanged from the battlefield, but no other useful items. Moreover, the capacity of this spatial ring is basically the same as the one Su-Bai carries with his jade ring, so there's no need to exchange it. I can just give it away later. As I was about to put the ring away, Yuri X said, "My esteemed commander, this ring possesses extraordinary power. I can sense a different energy fluctuation." Huh. Su-Bai raised the ring for Yuri X to examine. Yuri X concentrated, and the originally sapphire ring transformed into a human eye. Its attributes also changed. Blue sapphire spatial ring, rare item, embedded with soul gem, attached skill, telekinetic manipulation. Can partially alter the terrain, consumes 2,000 energy points to use. So that's how it is. No wonder a jungle suddenly grew outside the city. It turns out Lambwa activated the ring's ability. It's a pity Su-Bai has poor attributes and hasn't developed any energy properties, so this skill can't be utilized. He thought that selling the two items separately might yield better results and attempted to remove the embedded soul gem. Soul gem, rare gem, embedded in, ring, attached skill, terrain alteration. Can also be used as a one-time item. Permanently enhances the mental strength of telekinetic troops. Origin, battlefield of various realms. Leader of the Ghost Clan, it can actually be used this way. Su-Bai was overjoyed. Luckily, he took the gem off. Otherwise, he wouldn't have known it could be used as a one-time item. He immediately used the soul gem. The next second, Yuri X beside him clutched his head, looking in pain. After a while, he returned to normal. My head feels like it's filled with a small universe. My mental strength has become even more powerful. Watching Yuri X clutching his head, Su-Bai felt that this guy should have gained some intelligence. He then checked Yuri's attributes and found that these combat units could originally control only one target at a time. Now it has increased to 2. This astonished Su-Bai. They had become so much stronger. Chapter 164. Manipulating the battlefield king to serve himself. The Terminator's anger makes his teeth hurt with double control. Does this mean that one Yuri can control two beauties? Wouldn't that be exhilarating? The two women, dressed in fitted uniforms, were moving their hands up and down, beads of sweat forming on their foreheads. One worked at the factory during the day, while the other did the same at night, tirelessly earning money for him 24 hours a day. Ahem, back to the main topic. On the other side, the Terminator had already commanded his iron skeleton soldiers to eliminate all the undead cowboy legion revived by Su-Bai. Although these cowboys were incredibly agile, their ranged attacks caused no damage to the opponent, and in close combat, their attack power was not as high as that of the iron skeleton warriors. After a period of attrition, 500 cowboys fell once again. All troops, prepare. Continue advancing. Just as the Terminator finished issuing orders, an explosive arrow shot from a distance, aimed directly at his throat. Clang. The liquid metal hero in front of him intercepted it with a swift strike, resulting in an explosion that split his body in half. In the next moment, the metal liquid flowed and merged, restoring the hero to full health. The Terminator looked up to see Rambo, standing atop the city wall, aiming his explosive crossbow of fiery wrath at him. The onlookers were shocked. What's happening? Rambo has actually betrayed us. The defense minister and other officials were in a frenzy, each unable to grasp what was occurring. One person whispered, perhaps there's an underlying issue. We should have the Terminator ask him. If the benefits we provided were insufficient, we can increase the offer. The leader snapped back to reality and immediately instructed the Terminator to inquire. However, this only drew the Terminator's displeasure. Damn it, you're offering him more money while I've been serving you all along without a raise. Mr. Leader, that's not fair. Don't worry. I'll double the promised terms for you. Now that's more like it. The Terminator called out, my dear brother Rambo, why are you turning against your old friend? Have you forgotten the friendship we forged on the battlefield of the multiverse? Another rocket was fired. Friendship? We have no friendship. I only follow Commander Su-Bai's orders. Old friend Rambo, if you defect now, the leader can appoint you as the president of Haiti, allowing you to rule independently. Enjoy endless glory and wealth. In fact, the leader was willing to offer neighboring countries certain benefits. After all, on this continent, only the military of that particular nation was truly invincible. Attacking any country was merely a matter of words. However, the leader agreed to the conditions set by several other nations. The Terminator left a connection with a certain country, but publicly offered only a poor and struggling territory to another. It can be said that there were many tricks involved. I'm not interested in your terms. I only follow the commander's orders, said Su-Bai as he walked up to the city wall, patted the other's shoulder, and smiled. Go back and tell your leader that if he surrenders now, he can have that tiny piece of land. But for now, attack. Understood. The other then began to control his soldiers, stealthily approaching the enemy for a covert strike. The sound of clattering metal echoed from the iron skeleton warriors. The Terminator, who had been with the other for many years, was left speechless. Was this guy out of his mind? He didn't want to be the president of a nation? The crucial point was that in the battlefield of the multiverse, he couldn't possibly defeat his opponent. Was he really going to fight? Was he losing his mind? The illusionist kept striking the surface of the iron skeleton warriors, producing a sound like drums, while their health decreased only slightly. Subai felt a bit helpless. It seemed that no matter how much effort was put into winning over this individual, he still couldn't control the Terminator before him. He heard the other say to him, "Commander, don't worry. I'm very familiar with him. We have